Tash McGill. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, Daryl.
Oh, you sound good in that microphone. Don't you?
It's only on the microphone if I stand over here.
No, there we go. Good.
Amazing,
Good.
right? Isn't it? It's incredible how it works.
What have you been doing with your life? Boom, straight into it. What have you been doing with your life? I know, but I just want you to say.
I've been trying to change the world by helping people change the way they think.
Mm-hmm. And how have you been attempting to do that?
Through consulting, through my work, so vocationally, through helping businesses and organisations and individuals navigate their way through change, navigate their way towards their goals. So essentially strategy work.
Yep. You're a strategist, is that what you're saying?
I'm a strategist,
Yep.
yeah. And I do all the things that are cool, that are kind of the hip, buzzy things to do. I do digital strategy, I do social media strategy, marketing strategy, comm strategy. Basically anything that needs a plan to get you from point A to point B is what I do. But the really nice extension to that is that I do that kind of work with individuals. So I work as a coach. And help people who are looking for some kind of different outcome in their life to get there.
You work both in New Zealand and the States, or predominantly just the States, or do you actually do more than that?
I work predominantly split between the US and New Zealand, and I'm always open to working broader than that. So I'd really like to find a couple of clients in Spain, maybe also Italy would be fine. I'm open to parts of Germany. Yeah, mainly just to fit with my travel plans.
You just want to travel? You just want to travel?
Well, here's the thing. I always said I was opposite to most Kiwis who go, oh yeah, I'll go to school, go to uni, graduate, get a couple of years under my belt, then I'm going to go off for the big OE.
Yep. And
then once the big OE's done, I'll eventually find my way home, or I'll settle down and do that whole thing, and then I'll come back to New Zealand, and that'll kind of be it. And then it'll just be, pop off to Rarotonga once a year, or maybe Hawaii with the kids, Disneyland once they hit 10, that kind of thing. I never did that. I always thought, and just kind of held to the belief, my work will take me anywhere I want to go. So, and that's been largely true. I also like working for myself. I've kind of switched in and out of working for myself and working for others.
Yep.
And there's a delightful freedom, I think now. I always say to people, I like to have the opportunity to always vacation a little bit, even if that means that I'm always working a little bit. And what I've found is that over time, my need to completely unplug is actually much reduced.
Yep.
Because I think it brings more balance to how I
totally
live now.
Yeah, I was pretty similar. I did the same thing. So I didn't do the OE. I just decided that I'm going to, work through my 20s. And some part of me regrets that a little bit when people come back with all of the fun stories they have, because like you, I've seen the world through work, and I've seen a lot of places that a lot of these people who do their OEs don't see. I've been to, some of the darkest parts of Africa and the darkest parts of Asia and all that sort of thing. And you see the shit, and you see stuff like that. And then afterwards you take a little time, you have a little bit of a break. But it's not, I'm not going over there and getting drunk and doing drugs and doing all those things that people do on their OEs. Instead, it's just more work. But basing myself within New Zealand over the last 20 odd years and doing a little bit differently. I think it's the way we've done it is a little bit better, slightly more rewarding in some ways. I'm not going to say it's the best way, but I think because,
hey, look, we're like 4 minutes in, so let the judgment fly, I say.
All right, so everyone else sucks. And we've done a remarkably good job at our lives. Look at us. Just look at us. Look at what they had. No, that's bad. Where are you?
Bad.
Where do you reside mostly? Where do you call home?
Well, like Tūranga Waiwai home or home.
Where do you spend most of your year?
In an aeroplane.
True. Are you that much? You're
It's
just all over the place.
Yeah. 24K is a good seat. I like that one.
Where's 24K? On what plane? That's over the wing, isn't it?
No, it's up a little bit further.
It's at the top, isn't it? You're on the top right.
No, it's not right at the top. It's just kind of in between top. Between top. Cheers for premium economy. That's what I say.
Premium economy is great.
Yeah.
Why spend business prices when you can just do premium?
Well, especially when you're 5'2". Like you don't actually. I don't need to stretch out.
Yeah.
Just the little extra recline that sorts me out.
It's annoying when you get on a plane and you're 6'4", And you get on board, or you go to the counter and you say, "Oh, look, have you got any, exit rows or anything available?" No, there's no exit rows available. And you get on, and you swear that everyone in the exit rows are about 5'2".
Yeah. There should be a height requirement, eh?
I think there should be.
It would just be practical.
And then they make you you say, "Can I have an aisle seat?" And some airlines now charge you more for the aisle seat.
Yeah.
Thank you, them. That is great. So selfish. So bad. So what parts, in terms of what you're doing over in the States, which cities do you spend most of your time in? You were telling me before you were in Boston recently.
I was in Boston recently, which I enjoy. I love Boston. I have a little bit of a circuit that I do. So home base in the US is San Diego. I've got some great friends, a kind of community there that I've made over time. So that's home base. I've got a client that I've been working with for just over a year who's they're based in Sacramento. So I spend a lot of time in Sacramento, which is never a place I thought that I would spend any time.
Where's Sacramento?
Northern California. It's actually the state capital of California.
Is it?
Yes. And here's what's weird. Given that it is the state capital of California, which we all know is blue through and through.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many Republicans live in Sacramento.
Is it a Republican area? Really?
It's a little hotbed of Republicans.
Why? Why would that be? Normally you can trace it back to something.
If I understood anything about American politics, I would be making a lot of money.
I love American politics. It is like a reality TV show at the moment.
Look, I'm just, contextually, moment, time and place, I was this morning reading Twitter and the news about, recent events in New Zealand politics. And I just kind of went, oh, that's cute.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It just makes me feel so bad because I know, and I don't want to trivialize our significant political issues, but there was part of me that just went, oh, that's cute. But in America, they're trying to overturn a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
And Kanye West is getting an audience with the president. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
It is weird. Sometimes I think that people like Kanye West and Jay-Z and all those guys, they hang out together, and Kanye West is like the slightly simple cousin, and they're like, oh, you can come and hang out with us if you like. But I think he's really drawn the line now. Apparently, everyone's divorcing him from their social occasions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't figure out, and I kind of go, okay, well, I said to someone today on Twitter, I like your brain as much as I can from a distance without actually really knowing you. I like the projection of who you are. But I think it kind of works the same way for somebody like Kanye West, where I can't figure out if he's a genius and just positioning himself in such a way for like maximum impact, or if he's kind of nuts.
It's like he's trolling at the moment. He's trolling the world. And he's just doing things that he knows are going to get reactions.
Well, I thought that's what Donald was doing, trolling the world. Then, anyway, look,
it's a long
we could be there all night.
What's been going on in New Zealand politics? Because I saw something, didn't read the article. It was something about Simon doing, I don't know.
Some accusations been made by, now a former national MP, Jamie Lee Ross, made some accusations about Simon Bridges being perhaps corrupt and some other stuff, and probably by the time this goes to air it will have it's just blown over and whatever, because who knows what will actually happen. But and
even the way you describe it, it's just like, oh please.
Well, he's Jamie's resigned, and there'll be a by-election now in Howick, and he'll run as an independent, and we'll see what it all washes out like. But at the end of the day, I just thought there's not lives on the line. It's not a refugee crisis, and it's not, and I think, and they're in opposition, so this sort of stuff is bound to happen.
Yeah, to me, a lot of this sort of stuff trivializes all of the major things that are going on. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, who said what, blah, blah, pointing fingers, da, 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 da. Kids aren't getting fed,
can we get back to the business at hand?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a bit strange.
Oh, it's delightful to be with somebody so pragmatic.
Oh, yeah. Clearly. Look how pragmatic I am. So pragmatical. Made up a word. Now,
it's good. I like making up words. It's quite fun.
Pragmatical. The only thing I like about words is that you get them wrong or you make them up on the spot. Mm-hmm. Clearly they make sense.
Yeah.
And some people just go, that's not a real word. And to me, those people are dicks. Because it's like, it made sense. Why you got to make something out of it?
That's pretty much how all words started.
Exactly.
There was a use case. Somebody came up with it. Enough people got convinced. And then it was in the dictionary.
Mm-hmm. The entire English language is written by dyslexic people just like me. Perfect.
The English language has some serious problems. I concur.
Spell people.
And I write for a living, but
Yeah.
It's a terrible language.
My writing's so bad that even the spell check, I can write an article. I do reviews sometimes. I can write an article and it's about, I don't know, 500 words or whatever. And I guarantee there's at least 70 words in there that I've had to actually Google because spell check couldn't even find out what it was. That's awesome.
That's where AI is going to be great.
Is it?
Yeah.
It can just do it all for us.
Well, if you can imagine that your word processing software gets to learn you and how you put those words together in your unique pattern, and then learns how to figure out what it is that you actually meant, I think that's great.
I thought it was supposed to do that anyway. That was supposed
Your phone
to
does that.
The phone does it, eh?
The phone does it. Well, the Apple iPhone does it, but I'm not sure about Android. I haven't used one of those in years. But
neither. I tried once. We made a commercial for Vodafone one time, and they wouldn't let us use iPhone, so we had to use a Samsung something, and everyone on set was just, what? How do we had to get someone from
how do we try
Vodafone
that?
to
What?
show us how to
Yeah.
use the phone. It was just, you get so caught up in that ecosystem, that genius Apple ecosystem, which means we have to have everything Apple. And here we are.
Here we
Here we are.
I'm loving it.
Now, I'm excited
Right.
because you've brought some things with you, and you're also a bit of a whiskey connoisseur. Am I right?
I'm a lifelong student of whiskey. Yes.
A lifelong student of whiskey. How long have you been doing the whiskey thing for? You said lifelong, but I'm like, clearly you haven't
Since I
been
was
drinking
quite
since
young.
2.
Since I was quite young. Actually, true story, there is a bit of a story that goes around about someone, maybe me, being found underneath the bridal table at my uncle's wedding, finishing off the remnants of a bottle of champagne, aged 18 months or so.
I think it's 18 years. And I was
No,
like,
no,
that's
no.
not so bad. 18,
No,
you're
18
really?
months or so, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's another story about a time we were up at Kaiwi Lakes, I think, and,
Yeah.
I was polishing off one of Dad's beer bottles. So,
There you go.
yeah.
Started young. But whiskey as a art form, how long have you really been taking it seriously for?
I've probably been taking it seriously since I was about 22.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Sweet.
which is, hardly,
You know your
any
stuff.
time at all.
You know your stuff.
I've
22, so you've been doing it for 3 years. It's
Yeah.
not very long.
been...
What are you doing? What are you doing?
So since I was about 23,
I
I think.
Cool.
22, 23.
Enough chat. Let's talk about what we've got under the desk, shall we? Good.
Well, I'll show you yours if you'll show me. I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
You had one joke. You had one
know.
thing to do.
It's because I overthought it.
Okay, you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Okay, you go first.
Okay.
What do you got? Something to impress me?
It's a bit sad. I got my little bottle of Johnny Walker Red.
Hey, but you know what? I can... Well, first, shall I just show you what I've got?
You show me what you've
Okay.
got.
First, this delightful, one of my favourite whiskies, the Thompson two-tone release. This is a New Zealand whiskey, finished off in 2 different types of barrels. It's won a gold award at the San Francisco World Spirit Competition, so very, very prized, made by Matt and Rachel Thompson. It's delicious. It's one
Where's
of
it
my...
made out of? Sorry?
It's made here in New Zealand.
No, do you know whereabouts in New Zealand, or are they just sourced
Well,
their
Thompson is
ingredients
based out at Hallertau in Coatesville Riverhead.
Yep.
Now,
Another one.
yeah. Anyway, delicious.
Nice, yummy.
Some of my favourite people. Shamelessly plugging here.
Do it.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Things are better in pairs.
Abalur. Yep. They certainly are.
Abalur Abana. So this is one of my favourite Speyside whiskies. It is. It's finished in sherry casks and just is delightful here.
I'm just staring at it, going, it's such a cool looking bottle.
It is. It's a great looking bottle. So these two are 2 of my very favourite whiskies. Quite different from each other, but a similar.
That's nice.
Quite different from each other, but a similar theme in that they've both been finished in a barrel after the aging process.
This has been aged in a barrel of a certain description.
Yeah, check out the label. I'm pretty sure these ones are New
that's
Zealand
very
wine
different,
barrels.
isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Very
yeah,
different.
super different. Super different because it's made in a different place. Obviously environment, terroir has a huge amount to play in how whiskey comes together.
Yeah.
Man, this episode just got super boring for anybody who's not into whiskey.
No, but at the same
I'm
time,
like, oh, what? Yeah,
it's going
okay.
to be great.
Yeah,
Red wine and American white oak.
there you go.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
And
so
I'm pretty sure they're New Zealand red wine barrels, are they?
they are New Zealand red wine barrels, yes.
Yeah.
So the reason why I got this, to be honest, the reason why I got this is I crossed the road to try and get a bottle of Lefroy, which is my favourite whiskey of all time. I love my peaties, But I couldn't find any. So I found this, and I wasn't going to buy a big bottle because I'm not going to buy shite in a big bottle. I bought this just to demonstrate what an average, ordinary...
Well, I'm going to
whiskey
tell you a
does.
true story.
Tell me a true story.
One of my favourite distilleries. So the thing with Johnny Walker is that Johnny Walker is not bad whiskey, right? It's not necessarily premium whiskey, but it's not bad whiskey, and it's a blend of whiskies that come from some of the great distilleries. So one of the key ingredients in Johnny Walker Red Label is from Cardew, and Cardew is one of my favourite. Cardew. One of my favourite distilleries. And again, it's on the cusp of Speyside. Actually started by two women. So
Really?
back many moons ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's actually really traditional. Like how whiskey originally, how Scotch was originally being made was, the wives of farmers were making it in the farmhouse. They were farmhouse stills. You'd march on up to the kitchen window and see what you could get. And occasionally, if the tax or the excise man was coming through, the flags would be raised, and the village would go into hurried shutdown. And
Right.
it was all a bit dramatic back
love
then. And there were pirates, and it was all good times.
So if we were to drink these, which would you, and we're doing tasting first, which order would you go first?
Oh yeah, we're going to go this way.
Very good. I'll open this one since I brought it.
Okay,
I am
go on.
ashamed to be
Show us
doing
your
it,
strength
but here
there.
we go. Boom.
Thank you, patriarchy.
Thank you. I almost bought my own first. What an asshole.
Oh, but here's the thing: can you fight the patriarchy and keep chivalry?
No.
Okay.
Said it. There you go.
Okay, good.
I think.
Do you like how I just was like, okay, cool, I'll take that answer.
Dylan's not even going to go for this one. He's like, nah, bro. I'll wait.
Well,
Thanks,
here's what's good about tasting a whiskey like this. Now you're going to notice something. Do you want me to how nerdy do you want me to get right
Go
now?
full nerd.
Because I can go full librarian on this.
Yep.
So you're going to swirl this, but you're not going to do. If this was a glass of wine, you would then stick your nose in it while it was all kind of swirling around. You do not want to do that because you'll singe your nose hairs and basically ruin your palate for the rest of the tasting. So we give it a little swirl around just so that the oils get to coat the glass. We see here there's not a huge amount of viscosity in this guy, and we've got that kind of classic yellow gold.
I love how your voice says, classic yellow gold. Oh, you're in there.
It's Johnny Walker, so there's a limited amount of foreplay.
You just get straight into it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yep, no.
So what you're getting in there, in my opinion, anyway, is you're getting it's quite youthful. And so it's pretty lively. It's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, there's a bit of this going on. And it hasn't had, there's kind of this golden time to be in a barrel. So if you've ever heard somebody say, if you're buying a single malt, it's got to be 10 years, it's got to be 12 years, it's got to be 15, the older the better. So there's this kind of golden time for whiskey to be in a barrel where it stays in there long enough and it kind of starts to smooth out and starts to kind of get a little bit round, a little bit luscious. And then it can go too far and it just gets all kind of like, wow, that's just like chomping on a piece of wood. So you want to take it out in that kind of perfect time. But this, by the time you kind of get through that first alcohol burn, it's kind of light. It's a bit sweet. The sweetness is almost like a little burnt kind of toffee, like and then it goes away really quick.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Doesn't last long.
No.
I find that a bit, for some reason, when I drink things like Johnny Walker and some of the cheaper bourbons, it's chemically to me. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
There's a weird chemical kind of thing coming through.
Yeah, colour, caramel.
Yeah.
They can't do it in the States anymore.
Really?
Yeah, they can't add, they're not allowed to add colour, but there are other parts in the world where they
still add it.
will add colour. And sometimes, depending on the method of filtration and how it's been aged, that can have an impact on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like
You
it.
finished yours already. Wow.
Yeah, I did. I really did. I'm going to rinse this out.
Oh, you're getting professional on it.
I'm not mixing.
So, a little while ago, I actually judged the inaugural New Zealand Whisky Awards.
Mm-hmm.
We did,
The inaugural, really?
yeah, the first time they've done the New Zealand Whisky Awards. So whiskies from all over the world entered.
Right.
And I think the results have been announced, but I think it should be coming out really soon. Anyway, we did a tasting. There were about 6 of us on the panel, maybe 7, and we did just over 100 whiskies in a day tasting. So you're kind of like tasting, spitting, never really,
How many, you call them distillers? Is that what you would call, like
distilleries?
You say a vineyard.
Yeah.
If you own a vineyard, you make wine. Distillers is what you would
Distilleries.
call distilleries.
The distiller is the person, but the distillery is the
How many distilleries are in New Zealand, do you think? Like roughly?
There's actually it would be close to 100 maybe, but
Really?
do you mean whiskey distilleries specifically?
Whiskey specific. I know there's a lot of vodkas and there's a lot of all that sort of stuff around.
So whiskey specifically, I know of 4.
Right.
Technically 4. 3.
Yeah.
Technically 4.
Technically 4. I like that. There's a few options. You can just give it a go and find out what you like best. Are they all quite different? Are they all in different parts of the country?
There is 2 in Southland.
Yep.
Or Otago, Central Otago, Southland. So Cadrona,
Scotch
which
country.
is in Cadrona. Yep. It's located next to those other New Zealand icons, Cadrona Hotel and the Bra Fence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
Iconic.
It's Bra Fence. You drive past the Bra Fence to go into Cadrona Distillery, and then there's the New Zealand Whisky Company down in Otago.
Yep.
Further down, Otago, Oamaru, I should say. Apologies. Wow, that Johnny Walker's really getting to me. Kidding.
She's not kidding. Go on.
And then obviously there's Thompson. There's a whisky distillery on Waiheke that's recently opened, but very new.
Of course, there's one on Waiheke.
Well, it's actually going to be interesting because from a latitudinal perspective, it will be interesting to see what the conditions are like over there for aging whiskey.
What's good conditions? Because obviously, if it's Scotland is predominant, is big for it. So naturally, South Otago is probably similar and sort of thing. So the warmer we get, the less attractive it is to make whiskies. I am assuming.
Yes. Yeah.
And Waiheke's quite warm.
It is. So if you consider that, that Waiheke's is pretty much on the same latitude as some of the best winemaking regions for like Malbecs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You kind of go, oh yeah, wait, that doesn't necessarily. There aren't a lot of whiskey distilleries in Argentina and Spain.
True. Why? Because it's warm.
Warmth can. Here's what you need. Warmth is fine, but you need, if it's going to get super, super warm, you also need for it to be able to get super, super cold.
Right.
Because you need the expansion and the contraction of the wood in the barrels to actually do the chemical process of aging and warming up and extracting all of the flavour out of what's in the barrel. So I go nerdy for whiskey. Like, it's just incredible. And the best whiskey makers that I know are actually amazing chemists and scientists, or they're outstanding engineers.
Right.
Like, they understand process and they're fascinated by it.
I think that's what's cool about passion. If you've got passion for something, then you want to experiment and try things out, and you can talk about it and you're nerding. I like being around people who are like that, no matter what they're talking about. You could be talking about cars, you could be talking about whiskeys, you could be talking about, I don't know, grass.
Yeah.
Maybe not grass, but certain things. But genuinely though, if somebody knew some stuff about it and they knew how to get it across, like you are with the whiskeys, it's like, this is just fascinating. You're an interesting person, and I want to hear more from you. So, where do we go next?
Okay, so we're going to go to Thompson because
is this up to Dylan's palate?
Yeah.
Look at the excitement in his eyes.
Producer Dylan is excited.
He's excited.
Here, I'll pull yours first because I feel like you've missed out. So here we go. Okay, thank you. That's good. Look at that. Wait, hold on. Camera 2. See, did you like that? I'm making that joke right here. But you got to face it up.
No, we had a little job done in New Plymouth recently, and we went to a new whiskey bar there called Itch. And
I'm giving you a decent pour on that one. We can sit on it for a while and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, sure we will. So we had
because otherwise I'm having a terrible time.
Anyway, we had a good time with this little Itch bar. It was new. It was about 7 weeks old, and they had a very, very good range. And they had a little whiskey nerd girl, and she knew her stuff, and it was brilliant. And that's part of the entertainment. We were there, and she just broke it all down. And she said, what flavors do you like? I said, I like the Freud, I like peat, I like these sorts of things. And she brought down exactly what I wanted. And then she says, you might want to try this, and just kept it coming. Now, Dills, I don't think has drunk a lot of whiskey in his time? A little bit of whiskey in his time. And it was just fun to see everyone sort of learning and getting into it and all that, you know. Dylan did have his first espresso martini there. Very first. Yeah. What do you mean, yeah? You loved it. He's playing it cool now, but he was right into it, eh? Okay. I did have 2. Did you have 2? Yeah. Son of a... Great. Anyway, here we are.
I wasn't even really listening to that last
weren't.
part of the story because I was just making myself
Sniffing.
acquainted with this old friend.
That is good.
So you always want to just seeing as I'm on the nerd track, but you always want to breathe in with your mouth open. So in through the nose, but with your mouth open, so it hits the back of the olfactory. And you really do, like, you just want to let it slide over your tongue so that you can become
Lordy.
so you can become acquainted with it, and you want to take your time with it. There's no need to rush. The longer you spend with it, the more it's going to give you. Chew on it a little bit, let it hit all the corners of your mouth, so you're kind of activating and waking that whole thing up. Yeah.
That is smooth.
Isn't it delicious?
Wow, that is really good.
Yeah, right? I wouldn't pour rubbish.
For those of you listening, this is Thompson whiskey, New Zealand-made whiskey.
Yeah.
And it is damn good.
It really is.
It is very, very smooth. There is no heavy acidity coming out of it. It doesn't taste chemically or anything. It's not peaty.
No, it's not.
Which is interesting because I normally like my peaty whiskies, and that is...
Well, what you might like of theirs is they do a Manuka smoked whiskey, which is smoky. It's not peaty, but it's smoky. And just... again, totally, it's a product that screams New Zealand, but is totally whiskey, and just I take bottles of that with me all around the world, and people just fall over themselves for it. So
I'm not surprised.
Isn't that cool?
Unbelievably good. Japanese whiskies. Now, apparently, Japan is the second highest producer of whiskey in the world. I don't know if it still is, but at one stage it would.
No, it is. Yeah.
And they are crazy for it. What do you think about the Japanese whiskies? Is there a common thread running through them all, or
Scarcity is the common thread.
scarcity? Really?
Well, you know, after the big earthquake and tsunami, that knocked out a lot of there were a lot of warehouses that were knocked out. So scarcity, but also that happened at the same time that the popularity of Japanese whiskey was growing, and so more people were wanting to get their hands on it. It was being exported at volume into the US. Also into Asia, other parts of Asia, loving it. So the common thread through Japanese whiskey, and this would be, so the difference between, say, Irish, Scottish, American whiskey is that most of those whiskies take an element of the flavour profile, like Lafroig. So the Cadalton ladies, as we call them, Lafroig, Ardbeg and Lagavulin, the extreme whiskies, they all take that characteristic of peat and dial it up to about 14. Like they go past Spinal Tap. It's like all the way to 14.
All the way.
And that's their dominant characteristic. You go up into the Highlands, and it's the sweet honey and heather that you get. You go across to Speyside, you get a little bit more of that salty, saline kind of finish. You get that in the island whiskies as well. And you head down into the lowlands, and it's much more industrial. It's grunty, it's gritty. I kind of love it. And that's where my people are from. Right. And and then again in America, you know, depending on where you are, it's either big corn vanilla flavors, or it's rice, it's rye and spice. You know, but those characteristics kind of are all in play. In Japan, it's all about balance. So in Japan, everything is in perfect harmony, and so you don't pick up a glass of whiskey and go, oh yeah, the smoke is very pronounced in this, or, oh, the barley's really pronounced in this. You pick up a glass of Japanese whiskey and you want to praise it for its harmony and the way that it sits as a single entity in the glass.
There's a real cultural personality which comes through.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know that there are not just 24 seasons in the Japanese calendar? So they have 4 seasons, and then what they have, they have what they call the 24 small seasons. And then within each of those small seasons, there are another 3 seasons. And so there are actually 72 micro seasons in the Japanese seasonal calendar. Right. And each one of those micro seasons has a line of poetry to describe it.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That is very, very cool.
No. I mean,
love Japan.
we think, no, it's on the list.
It's next level, eh? It's so cool. It's a fascinating place. When you get there, everyone's so subservient. You know, everyone else comes first. You know,
We're learning something about our personalities here.
are we?
Yeah.
What are we learning? What are we learning? For those of you who are only listening, I've almost finished. Tash has had like 2 sips. It tastes so good though. Since when did whiskey become so refreshing? Oh, Dills is still chomping away. Dills is...
But mine are like slow, savoured, long, delicious kind of breaths. It's like I'm breathing with the whiskey.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm doing.
You're just...
I am devouring it.
It's good. It's good. You need both. You need balance. I'm like that when I get on something like Maker's Mark, which is one of my favourite bourbons.
Ooh, nice. I do like Maker's Mark.
Yeah, Maker's 46 is just incredible. And if you ever have the opportunity to go visit that distillery, it's good times.
Is that in Tennessee?
No.
Kentucky?
It's in Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah. Good old Kentucky.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you like?
What do you think, Dills?
It's good. It's really different. Like you're right, it isn't smoky at all.
Mm-mm.
It's really weird, actually. Weird? Smooth, but weird. It's weird because
Yeah.
it doesn't taste like a normal whiskey. Yeah. I think it's just divine.
It's beautiful,
And
isn't
I
it?
would like to try and... Actually, I want to go... Have they got a cellar door? Do they do that sort of thing in whiskey? They don't.
You do, but they don't. But you can pick them up Glengarry.
Right.
Glengarry, the airport, a number of different stores, but Glengarry's tends to be where I head because they have a good selection.
And they got the smoky Manuka
They
honey
do
smoke.
have the Manuka smoke.
And they'd have a few others, wouldn't they? I'd like to try them all.
Well, you know what? We could probably arrange that.
I think we should.
I know some people. We can head out to the distillery. One of the things that I love about Matt is that Matt was actually he was in film construction, so he did carpentry for film sets before he moved into making his own whiskey with Rachel, who is really an engine behind it. But the stills that they are moving to using, he's hand beaten out of copper himself. I mean, he really is a craftsman.
Matt, you've done well. Matt has done superbly well.
Yes. He's a superb creature.
Superb.
As is Rachel. She's one of my favourite
E in
humans.
his whiskey. I admire that.
No.
Why do Americans put E in their whiskey?
Because it doesn't. We can't blame the Americans for that. To be fair, it's an Irish versus Scottish issue originally. So the Scots no E, the Irish there's an E. Maker's Mark, for example, Scottish roots in that family. The Samuels. And so they have they spell whiskey without the E, but huge Irish influx into America and whiskey with an E. That's how it is.
So Jameson's has no E.
No, Jameson's has an E.
Jameson's has an E. Jameson's Irish, isn't it?
Yeah, Jameson's Irish.
But it has an E.
Yeah.
It does have an E.
Yeah.
Right, got it.
Because E goes with Irish.
Myself. Yeah, no,
E goes with Irish, even though there is no E in Ireland. I mean, in Irish. There is in Ireland, but not in that. See, the English language is what I'm saying.
The English language takes other languages and bastardizes.
Yeah, I would like a point for that callback.
You could have a point for that. That was
Thank
well
you.
played.
Yeah.
That was well played.
Ooh. You just want to move on to the next one now.
I do.
I'm like,
I really do.
It's like we've got nothing else to talk about apart from whiskey.
Until we've drunken that, we've got nothing else to talk about. No.
Yeah. So when I worked in an advertising agency,
yep.
I used to routinely have, one or more bottles of whiskey, because I was like, hey, I'm living this madman life.
Sure.
But I used to routinely have bottles of whiskey on the desk, and then as on the hard days, you'd be like, it's time for whiskey.
What did you do at the ad agency?
Oh, I was doing strategy work.
Yeah.
As you do.
Strategy for the agency or strategy for the clients of the agency?
Strategy for the clients of the agency. Right. So when I was in that world, I was looking after strategy for Tourism New Zealand. Because let me tell you,
was this in the key days?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Yep.
So here's a tough ask when you have worked on that as a project. Like when you're like, okay, what product is it that I'm trying to sell to the world through great digital experiences? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, New Zealand, I'm trying to sell New Zealand. Yeah, it's really hard to find a job that tops that job. because you go to work every day and you feel like I'm actually making a difference. Like
Right.
if I do a good job
Yeah.
of this, I'm contributing to the economy.
Yep.
I'm helping people come to New Zealand and have what I think can be life-changing experiences here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm welcoming them into our unique culture, and and doing it something that I feel I can be proud of.
Have you had that same feeling since you've been doing what you're doing? I suppose when you're working for yourself, there's a different type of reward. But have you had that same sort of feeling toward another client or another project?
Yeah, well, So actually, the pathway from, because I did go and do some other kind of work after working for that agency. The pathway back to working for myself was identifying what was it about when I was working on that tourism account that made life feel so good, that made it feel fulfilling.
Yep.
And it was, I'm working on meaningful change. So
Right.
that was the pathway back to, okay, if I'm working with clients on meaningful change for either their business, for their project, or for themselves, then that's going to feel good. That's gonna be meaningful.
So it's a lot more than just a paycheck at the end of the day for you. It's all about making that difference.
Yeah.
Helping people find themselves or helping people push
but
forward
also
through
the
something.
paycheck.
Well, the paycheck keeps you fed. The paycheck keeps you fed naturally. It's all about the
Yeah.
money, isn't it? It's all about the money.
Well, one of my values is generosity.
Correct.
And the value of generosity means that I need to live in such a way, whether that's income or outgoing, I need to live in such a way that I can be generous with my time and my resources whenever I have need or whenever there's an opportunity. So that then dictates how I live my life, both in terms of what I spend my money on, but also the way that I value myself and the work that I do in order to get paid so that I can live that generous life. It's kind of interesting for me. The complexity in my head is probably overthought for a lot of people. They can just go, yeah, I want to earn this amount of money. But for me, I'm like, no, I want to earn this amount of money so that it releases this thing in my life, and then I'm working on this and I'm integrated. Yeah.
What was the point in life that made you think that way? Sort of.
About integration?
Yeah.
Adolescence.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah, totally.
I was thinking of other things in my adolescence, but no, very good.
I went to an all-girls school.
Oh, you did. You did.
So I had to think about other stuff because
Yeah.
I'm strangely straight.
You're strangely straight.
Like for an extraordinarily curious person.
Yeah.
And I've often said this: if it weren't for the fact that I'm just really, really straight, and I have certain moral kind of beliefs around relationships and intimacy and interaction, which isn't to say that I'm not, open to experimentation, but for most of the early part of my life, I was just kind of like, I think that exploring these aspects of myself kind of should sit within some of these boundaries.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh wow, I'm like really straight. So whilst
Sorry,
I have like a super intellectual curiosity about like what that must be like to be attracted to somebody of the same sex, I'm actually just really straight.
I admire your honesty.
Isn't that weird?
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, it's like I'm coming out straight.
Coming out so straight.
Sorry, guys.
But it is kind of weird because today everyone needs to be needs to hold some kind of progressive stance on everything, and that includes, say, sexuality, for example.
Right.
Not even for example, say sexuality, and everyone. It's seen as you are weird if you haven't had some sort of non-straight, experimental phase or anything like that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's a great thing. Do whatever you want to do. But
I mean, I would say my views on it are pretty progressive.
Yeah.
But they're just not my views for me.
No.
Like, they're my views for the world at large.
Yeah.
But I am like, I'm like, most of that stuff is sweet as.
Yeah.
I'm really straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so.
No,
I don't know if that. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean. And there is nothing wrong with being straight. I don't even know why I'm saying that. But when you listen to a lot of the ideology that's going around at the moment in terms of fucking everything, really. When it comes to politics, when it comes to economy, ecology, and all that sort of stuff, and you're just feeling like you're just holding that in front of me. That's just cruel, mean. Fuck it, let's just drink it. Get in there. Should I rinse the glasses out?
If you want, go for it.
I feel like I'm being heathen if I don't. Oh, All right.
Now this is a big whiskey. I was going to say this is a big boy, but I'm fighting the patriarchy. So I'll just go with it's a big whiskey. So now usually I would say, hey, feel free to add water to this because it's big. It's sitting at 60% ABV.
Needs to be lubed up.
Which I do carry some in my bag. Water. Now, the reason why I say that is because at that ABV, alcohol by volume, at that ABV, it's actually going to be, you're going to be able to taste less of the actual whiskey flavours and you'll just be in like more of the burn because of how big it is.
Quick question before we get into it.
Yeah.
ABV, what's the other one? So you get proof and you get people say like 80% proof, blah, 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 blah. What are the differences? Because clearly something's not really 80%. When it comes to normal.
So 80% is generally talking about what the level is when it's been made and when it's been cut and when it's been barreled.
Right, okay.
Whereas ABV is, so once it's finished aging, when that's ready, it's then cut with water and bottled at a particular alcohol level.
Got you.
So that's the difference.
Cool.
I just have this water here.
So you're just going to splash it with some water?
I am actually just going to give it a little drip. Is that all right?
Do it. No, do it.
Okay. Just because it's going to make it a little bit better for everybody. And I'm so glad that my really awesome Sistema drink bottle that travels the world with me is now like in there. Okay, we should be good. I think we're good.
All right.
Now, we're up to the third whiskey, so we've been remiss because we haven't talked about traditional greetings, right? So we're going to do that now. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say slange.
Slange.
Or slangeva.
Slangeva.
So slange, just to your good health, cheers.
What language is that?
I'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
But slangeva.
Slangeva.
To your very good health. I really mean it this time.
I can see it in your eyes.
It's the Gaelic.
What's it Gaelic?
The Gaelic.
Gaelic, all right. It's the Gaelic. It's the Gaelic, right. Gaelic. I got some friends in Ireland and they're going, Dara, what are you talking about, you bastard?
Do you prefer doing an Irish accent or a Scottish accent? Of the accents that you do.
It's changed. I used to be
Daryl,
Scottish.
you're the voice in my head.
It used to be...
Every damn ad.
It used to be... I used to like doing the Scottish more because I met Billy Connolly once and I just sort of like, Daryl, how are you? See, even then I drift into this Northern Irish accent.
That's quite Northern Irish.
Yeah, my grandfather's Northern Irish.
Oh, okay.
And toward the end of his life, I just started listening to him more. Mm-hmm. And it just got stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And then... so now definitely Northern Irish accent is my accent of choice.
That's your go-to.
People say, yep. It's like, Darryl, what are you doing? You're a disappointment to the family. It doesn't really say that, but it sounded good in Northern Irish accent. Lots of it's a cool accent anyway.
It is a cool accent, yeah.
And that is it's got Scottish roots. Scottish farmers came over and Protestantized. If there's such a word. I made another word.
There was a lot of intermingling.
Was it intermingling?
Yeah, it was the Irish that brought whiskey to Scotland.
Aye, I did know that. Mm-hmm. That is very, very good. Can we just drink this now? That'd be great.
Oh, I already started.
Oh. Well, that's different.
Yeah. See, it's quite interesting. My joke I always use, right, is that when you're approaching a whiskey for the first time, particularly if you're a woman, you just want to imagine...
Holy shit, that is strong. I'm trying to imagine that without the water in it. Wow. That is, wow.
Anyway, like I was saying, sometimes when approaching a whiskey for the first time, you want to be cautious. Imagine, as most women can, that you are approaching something you're not quite sure if you want to put in your face yet.
Revel in the awkwardness. Love it. But it's very true. It's very true.
I once delivered that joke with my mother in the room.
It's a great joke.
But it's okay because she's about 4 whiskeys in, so
that's good.
Didn't matter.
The same could be said for men,
That is true.
What's weird is Daryl was quite confident just putting that right in his face.
He was just like, I'm in.
I just chucked it in there. I didn't even look at it. I'm just like, okay, here we go. Just put it there.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's a good approach as well.
Yeah, just chuck it in a face hole, see what happens. No, yeah, I'm drinking it. I'm such a pussy right now. That is amazing.
Well, if you just take your time, just like hang out with her a little bit, right?
I'm hanging out with it.
Yeah.
That's really good.
She's got a story to tell you.
It's really, really good. Again, not peaty, I don't find.
No, I didn't bring it. Well, I thought that you were going to be cracking out the Lafroig.
So did I.
Yeah,
God damn it.
that old French kiss with the charcoal fireplace, an ashtray.
I love it. I don't know why that's the one that I've just... Because
it is good.
Most people, when I pour it and they smell it, and they're like... They think it's like petrol, it's horrible, but I don't know. I find it so easy to drink.
Yeah.
Way too easy to drink. And yeah, there it is, Lafroig. But I
It's
couldn't get it
gorgeous.
across the road. Thank you, little people across the road who don't sell Lafroig.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
But no, that's... How would you describe that, Miss Professional?
It's rich, but what I enjoy about it is, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but there's a slight green tinge just sitting in the meniscus
I can see that.
of that.
Yeah.
And it has that kind of what we would call like a burnished hue, where it's a deep green gold with this little kind of amber piece in the middle of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love is that you see the colour that it's taken on from the sherry cask, and you can see some of the age in it. It has a viscosity that's quite rich, so it's quite oily. And what I love about that is it's kind of telling you, yeah, this has been around a while. Like, this has taken its time to get to you. And it's, and it carries, for me, it has a real body to it that carries the alcohol well. Yeah. It's not like you're like, oh my gosh, it's all burned and then it's all gone. It's like, no, you work.
No, that burn lingers. It's great. The burn just stays. Yeah.
Look.
No, it's a good burn.
Keep working on it, Padawan.
It's a deep burn. It's a good burn. Padawan. I like that. That's a good burn. I like it. That's really, really good.
What I love is the, so you have there's quite a raisin component to this, right? Sherry, Christmas cake.
Yep.
Right? So you have that kind of rich but dry finish. So it's not, so it has a sweetness, but the sweetness kind of dissipates into this dry kind of nuttiness that is actually like, almost savoury and Moorish. And, you're chewing on it at the end and you're like,
Definitely Moorish.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely Moorish.
Well, there's more here.
There's more right there. Are y'all trying to get me drunk?
Okay. No, actually I wasn't. You're doing a good job of that for yourself.
I am.
Abana.
So I'm just going to, James Fleming. Very good. Anyway, 60.9%. No, they can definitely taste every percentage of that 60.9.
Yeah. And so most whiskies that you're drinking, out of the bottle, off the shelf, are between 40 and 43%, sometimes 46%.
Yep.
And so what you want to do is, anytime you're drinking something that's higher than that, you want to be mindful of the water is going to help you taste it better. Now, some people are going to get all worked up and tell you can't have ice with that.
No, but it opens it up a little bit, right?
It opens it up, because what it's doing is it's diluting the alcohol. It's allowing your palate to taste more. When I'm tasting a whiskey for the first time, I'll actually water it down, drop by drop. I'll take my time with it. I'll spend half an hour with the whiskey really learning it, because every drop of water that you add, every mil or every 2 mils, is going to open up more layers. There are literally hundreds of flavonoids in here that we're not going to be able to pick up because our receptors are just not that clever. They're not that sensitive. If they were, my mouth would be insured for like $1 million.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is give ourselves the best chance to taste all of those different flavors. So I'll often end up getting to a point where I've knocked this right down to it's 50-50. So.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely no shame in that, because then when I go back to it the next time, the mind is an incredible thing. When I go back to that whiskey the next time, I'm going to be able to find all of those flavors a lot sooner and a lot faster without having to water it down.
Yeah. Cool.
Invest the time now for the payoff later.
Wow. Whiskey changed my life.
I have many times thought about just moving to Scotland and just going to bum around in a distillery. By bum around, I mean work really hard. But But then I think, I love this as a passion. It's the same reason why I don't want to become a chef. I love cooking. I make really good food. But
Do you think you would lose that passion if you just got involved with it too much?
I don't think that I'd lose the passion, but I think, I've probably steadily cultivated a lot of different interests and passions in my life. And so, I think going too far down the road with one of them might ruin it.
Right.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of that, though, like, you got a passion for something and then involving yourself more in the roots of where it came from. It sounds like a beautiful, passionate thing, and a lot of people go out and do that, but I don't. I kind of agree. I think if you've got a passion for something, it doesn't mean you should engross your entire life in it. because you may just find that you don't like it. You just like the end
Or
product.
become an alcoholic, yeah.
Or become an alcoholic.
But yeah, I mean, it's not like everybody who loves playing guitar all of a sudden goes
Yeah.
out and starts making guitars.
They can buy amazing albums and enjoy those, and that's their passion. But
Yeah.
they should not be playing guitar, or maybe it's just not what they should be doing.
Well, and I think,
Yeah.
what, one of the things that's really messed up,
What's
because
really messed up?
I'm like, come on, let's rant about something. Let's get like ragey about something. I'm sure we'll get there.
Let's do it.
You're like 3 in, so
I'm
you're,
three in. I'm
you're,
sit back. Look at
you-
me. I'm just
you're
back
just
now.
like,
We're chilling.
what's
This is
that?"
great.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Whereas for me, I'm like, I'm super engaged now. I was engaged before, but
Oh, we're
ended badly. Just kidding. What I was going to say, though, is that, the challenge of vocation versus passion versus work, and this, like, the misnomer that if you're passionate about something, you should be able to make a living from it. Because it's not always true.
It's not always true.
Because the world doesn't necessarily always need more artists. It doesn't mean that your art isn't important, but does your art need to be your vocation? Like, what's in the message of your art, or what's in the message of the thing that you're passionate about?
Yeah.
What's in that is connected to your vocation or to your impact or to whatever,
I totally agree, and I think there's a bit of a problem these days that a lot of people are being told that just follow your passion. Do what you're
yeah,
passionate
you know what?
about.
That's a millennial problem. Let's blame that on the hipsters.
Totally. No, we totally should blame it on the hipsters. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to work from my laptop. It'll be great. No, that's not going to fucking work.
Wait, hold on. That's
go.
what I do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
No, but you do. No, but you do it. You started doing that before that whole revolution of all that sort of bollocks started.
I'm the OG.
You're the OG. You're the original hipster.
Yeah. Actually, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But no, it's true.
Well, no, to be fair, though, hipsters are actually our generation. There's a terrifying thought. We're like running around going, oh, look at those 25-year-old hipsters. But actually, oh no, it started with us.
They were actually.
We brought that havoc to the world.
I remember when, I think it was about 2005, where guys' jeans just got too goddamn skinny. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is wrong with you people? And then the beards grew out, and then... And then,
You have to keep-
why do
you
you
have-
look
you have
like
to
a
keep-
lumberjack? I don't understand.
Optimal stubble. You have to keep optimal stubble.
I'm a little bit over stubbly at the moment. I think I'm looking a little bit too,
Right.
it's a little bit too long. I'm a
Okay,
few
yeah.
millimeters too
Yeah.
long, and I like
Yeah.
it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there was that. Everyone had the beard, and everyone had the, woodcutter look. And you're trying to look masculine, and yet not. It was an amazing time. The contradiction. It was remarkable. And now it's all kind of drifted back a little bit, I guess. The jeans have gotten a little bit looser. But, yeah, I don't know. Where were we going with that? Somewhere.
I don't know.
It's great. But no, we were
Still's
talking.
asleep
But we
yet?
were talking. Not yet. But we were talking. We were talking about. We were talking about passion and
Yeah.
turning that into
A job, a career.
a career. And everyone these days, especially millennials, get told that you can do that. You can have your passion. You can be passionate about something, and you turn it into a career, and you're going to succeed, and it's going to be great. And we're not going to teach you how to deal with failure, but that's all cool because most of you will. And
Well, I think it's changing now. I think we're starting
Yeah.
to have to deal with failure, right?
yes,
Some of which happens through mental health awareness and
Yes.
the change that we're making there. But for the most part, I agree with you. We haven't done a good job of teaching world economics.
no, not at all. Not at all. Up until I would say up until last year, even there wasn't a lot of awareness of failure. You can fail. This is how you should deal with failure. And everything was like, you're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. Everything's a Tony Robbins seminar. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. I'm not taking anything away from Tony Robbins seminar. They're amazing, but if you don't listen to the entire message, you miss the part that says this is how you deal with failure. You have to accept that there are some things that you cannot do. There are some things in life that you have to accept that you're just going to have to be a cog in a wheel, and that's just how it is. But up until recently, and a little bit now, there's still you can do anything mentality, and I think that's not great. That's not entirely great.
No, it's not. I took a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Which is that I just learned about failure through failing,
Yeah. Yeah.
just multiple times,
Yeah.
right? And I grew up being aware of failure from my early teens.
Yeah.
Like, nah, you stuffed that one up. Well, good job. Whatever. I credit my mother with this. At the time, I did not enjoy it, but I credit her with it now because anytime anything went wrong and I was wound up or upset about anything, her first question would always be, well, what did you do wrong? Like, what part do you have to play in this?
Yeah.
So I learned that self-critique, which then naturally sets you up to deal with failure well, because you know that failure becomes a learning process, right? You're just like, okay, this hasn't gone the way I wanted. What can I learn from it?
Yep.
Where do I need to pivot? What do I need to put into play? It's probably, contributes to the work that I do now. But you still have to want to go there. Like, you still have to actually you still have to be in a situation where you're prepared to confront the nasty uglies.
And the nasty uglies will happen.
Not
all the time, but
the
I'm going to
nasty
say
uglies are already there.
Yeah.
Like, the nasty uglies are in here. Like,
Yep.
every significant failure that you will experience in life is already deeply within you and is just waiting for an opportunity to take you by surprise. And so, do the work now or do the work later. I talk about it as like so I say, generally speaking, that our internal world and external world is destined to either align or collide.
Yep.
So you can do the work of confronting the nasty ugly. So what is the capacity for failure that I have? What is the capacity for failure? What's the capacity to let myself down, to let somebody else down? What are the aspects of myself that I don't feel that comfortable with, my weaknesses, whatever. All of that stuff is failure, right? It's potential failure. It's sometimes failure that we'll bring about onto ourselves because we just think ourselves into it. You can do the work to actually confront a whole bunch of that stuff sooner. That's alignment, right? That's actually taking yourself to a place where the person that you are on the inside and the person that you are on the outside is actually much more integrated and connected, and you're authentic on the outside. You're not trying to pretend to be, great at something that you're not great at. You're not trying to pretend to be anybody that you're not.
Yep.
Or there's collision. And so when we talk about failure, there's failure that happens to us because shit's just out of our control and we can't do anything about it. But that's not really responding to bad shit. Is actually a different skill set than just responding to failure, because failure always has something to do with us.
Yes.
So collision is what happens when you don't do the work to align your inside and your outside. It's when you're living that life of pretending to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
And then eventually at some point you can't hold it together anymore and the inside busts out and you're just like, here's your nasty ugly that you've been trying to keep at bay. Hey, I'm here to ruin the day. Have you seen Big Mouth?
Have I seen Big Mouth?
It's a Netflix show. It's about middle schoolers. It's about like intermediate age kids going through puberty.
No.
But there's a character in it called the Hormone Monster. Actually, there are many hormone monsters. And that's kind of like, that's an ideal picture actually of internal and external, right? Because you go into puberty, you go into adolescence, and all of a sudden there's this whole like other thing going on, feelings and thoughts and like bodies, like what the heck is this?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you're trying to figure out who I was before and who I am now, still the same person, but I've got to somehow integrate the hormone monster into that, right? Alignment and collision. Yeah. Eventually, you have to deal with that, you're kind of into sex now. Otherwise, it's going to get real awkward real soon.
Yep. And I think one of the things that there is a certain amount of, I don't know, people are told so much now that everything is going to be all right, that they expect and they demand that everything's going to go the way they want it to go. And there's a certain amount of mental instability which has been happening over the last 5 to 10 years. I'm not going to say especially, but I've noticed it more in the last 5 to 10 years, that people just haven't been dealing with their failures that well. And they haven't been, but not only that, people around them haven't been dealing with other people's failures that well. No one knows how to really deal with those situations. And
what to do when someone lets you down?
What to do when someone lets you down, and how to deal with someone who is going down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of both there.
Have you been through it?
Depression and that sort of that kind of. I quite often think of myself sometimes as the original millennial, because when I was younger, I was always told, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to be the best at this, you're going to succeed at that, you're going to be an All Black, you're going to be a movie producer, director, blah, blah, blah.
You were going to be real busy.
I'm going to be real busy. Not at the same time, but at different times. But unfortunately and fortunately, like fortunately for me, the time that gave me confidence. So there is an embedded confidence in me which sort of walks around and struts. But
I've noticed that.
Yeah, a lot of people have. But there's also... There was also a an expectation that these things may just happen to me. You know, they didn't, or they don't. And it took a long time to try and realize that. It took a long time to realize that if you don't work hard and you don't do the groundwork and lay the seeds, you are not going to get the fruits of your labor later on.
Yeah.
And that took a little bit longer for me. So it was almost like I was the original millennial. It was like, oh no, I'm self-entitled. I'm going to fucking get everything because everyone says it's going to be great. And then later on, as I got into
I was just born with it.
I was born
I'm
with
just
it.
going to walk in there.
I'm genetically perfect.
Yeah.
I'm mentally perfect. I've got it all. But what happened was, as I got older, and especially, I mean, it's still going on now. Like, this is all recent discoveries for me when I was in my mid to late 30s. Let's go earlier. Say right through my 30s has been that discovery of, I didn't do all of this stuff that I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
I took my 20s far too seriously, and ironically, taking it far too seriously meant doing nothing because I just thought, trying to put myself in positions that it was just going to happen.
Oh, like it's the lotto ticket scenario.
Lotto ticket scenario. I'm
not going to worry about saving money. I'm not going to worry about whatever. I'm just going to make sure I've got enough to buy the $24 triple
Correct.
dip on Saturday.
I put myself here.
Yeah.
This is going to happen.
Right.
And that doesn't happen.
Transactional life.
Right.
Which is the opposite of life by design.
Yeah.
Like,
and while you're going through the transactional life, you're just putting yourself further and further into debt because you're using credit to try and keep you going because you believe that, it's going to be fine because that's going to happen later on.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
Well, that's where the power of positive thinking doesn't take you all the way.
It doesn't take you all the way.
You actually got to do something about it.
You
Yeah.
got to work on that shit.
And you have to figure out even if you want the thing that you think is going to happen to you. Like if you've grown up your whole life being told, oh yeah, this and this and this.
Yeah.
At what point did you say, actually, I'm Daryl, I want to be an All Black, and then I want to be a movie producer?
And then I want to be this, and I want to be that.
And then I want to be this, and then I want to be
I'm
that.
going to be everything, and everything's going to be great.
Was your dream car the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, or the Mustang?
Ferrari.
Yeah.
I was a big Magnum.
I nearly said Maserati, and then I was like, no, you're not a Maserati guy.
Tell you the truth, I was into Ferraris because Magnum PI drove one, and I thought that is very, very cool. Then I got into Testarossa, kind of ugly, not great. And then I heard a Maserati. And I was just like, that is just the sound of sex.
Yeah.
And since then, I would take a Maserati over a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. The sound is amazing. This is what worries me about electric cars. They don't have that sound. Yes, they're fast. They feel amazing when you drive them.
Well, I mean, some do. Like the Tesla feels great when you drive it.
Yes, it does.
There are other electric cars that, are nice to drive. And then there's the Toyota Prius C.
Or the Leaf.
Which is not anywhere near as much fun.
No.
No.
It's like they didn't try. We don't really want to make these, so let's just call it something really shit.
I got a rental car upgrade a few weeks ago. Upgrade. We've upgraded. Miss McGill, we've upgraded you.
Yeah.
I said, oh, really? Okay. Because usually when they say that, it's like, it's a Mustang or it's a
This is
a
in the
Charger.
States, I take it.
Oh, in
because
the States.
clearly
yeah.
we're not going to get a Mustang as an upgrade here. Yeah.
Upgrades here in New Zealand. What are you talking about? Who are you? What makes you think you deserve an upgrade?
Here's the Commodore. You can have the Holden Commodore or the Ford Falcon. I don't even think they have those anymore, but yes.
No, I don't think they do. Anyway.
Go on.
So they were like, yeah, we're giving you an upgrade. And I was like, okay, great. And it was a new Toyota Prius.
Oh, well done.
And I was like, cool, thanks.
What were you upgraded from? What was did you see what the original car was?
Oh, I think it was just going to be something like, it was just going to be something. No, it was something like a Chevy Malibu. So just like a standard,
right.
a regular sedan, kind of midsize. But yeah, the upgrade was to the new Prius. Yeah. And I didn't mind it, but again, if you can I put my foot on the gas?
There's nothing happening here. No. Yeah.
So yeah.
I was in the States once and we rented a car. We got an upgrade. I think they give everyone an upgrade to make themselves feel good. But we went from LA to Vegas.
Oh, that's a good drive.
That's an amazing drive. You're like the movies you're imagining you're in as you're driving along.
Did you take Route 66 and go through Joshua Tree and Mojave?
No, we didn't have time.
Wow, you haven't lived.
It takes a little bit too long. No, I really, really want to go. I got a friend of mine, Brad, over there. He lives in Joshua Tree.
It's the same friend.
We've got the same friend, don't we? We've got exactly the same friend. He's there. Brad, if you're listening.
No, it's all right. You can claim him. Yeah, fine. Claim him. It's fine. It's okay. Whatever. Cool.
He's filthy. No, Brad's great. But no, he's over there. And
love that guy.
I caught up with him earlier this year. Man, it goes fast. Earlier this year. And he was like, yeah, bro, come on over. So I'm quite keen to get over there and have a look. It's bizarre. It's such an outer-worldly place.
I'll pick you up
that
at the
drive.
airport.
Let's do it. Yeah, we should.
I get upgrades.
We're going to do it.
We can take
do
the
you?
Prius.
Do you? Oh, I didn't tell you what I was driving. We got a Lincoln Continental.
Wow.
This huge friggin' thing.
Okay.
And we're cruising along, and you are bawling, man.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
feel amazing.
I went to Vegas a few years ago. A friend of mine was competing in the world's toughest mudder.
Oh, really? In Vegas?
Yeah, he's done it several times. He's a Kiwi.
Yeah.
He's now actually, randomly, he's now competing in like competitive mini golf. There's like a story. Yeah, Matt Ainsley.
We've got
you
the
know.
same
We've
friend.
all got the same. Hey, who
It's a
knew it's New
small
Zealand?
world.
It's New Zealand, 2 degrees.
Wait a minute. Matt plays mini golf?
Yeah, competitively. He's going to the
There
world
is such a
champs.
thing as competitive
Yeah, but
mini
here's the
golf.
thing. His dad is recently, I think his dad's like, he's number 2. No, Matt's number 3 and his dad's number 2. I love John. John's awesome.
Don't know
Shout
John.
out, John.
No Matt there.
If you don't, if you know Matt but you don't know John, do you really
You
know?
haven't lived.
Do you really know the Ainsleys? I don't know.
I don't. I don't. I
Anyway,
barely know
Can
Matt.
I
know
say
Matt through
funny
girls.
story on this though? So
Yeah.
I met a guy in the States. We were speaking at the same conference. And I told him the story about the 2 degrees, the phone network, and how the phone network is like named 2 degrees because New Zealanders, you know, if you've played 6 degrees of separation with good old Kevin Bacon, actually in New Zealand it's just everybody's 2 degrees separate from each other. And he's like, really? I'm like, yes. And he's like, really? I was like, yes. No word of a lie. Like maybe 3-4 months ago, he's in Costa Rica at some event, and there's a Kiwi there, and he says, "Oh, I met this Kiwi woman, Tash, and she told me that you're all connected by like." And she goes, "Oh yeah, Tash McGill, yeah, she's a friend of my friend Shelley," and like blah blah. And there's a Facebook message, and like within 20 minutes, and I was just like, "We win."
We went done. You can have your 6 degrees. Ours is 2.
You don't want to mess with a New Zealander when it comes to networking.
You don't. Until it comes to having a conversation with them. Anyway, I might have some of this.
Go on, knock yourself out. I brought it for you, mate.
I think I
So
will.
enjoy it.
That is amazing. But no, that drive is remarkable, and no, we should definitely queue something up, and we should all
Party.
More?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Slant.
Ooh. Just so everyone knows
Okay,
who's
we've got
just
some-
listening, we're back on the. How do you say it? Abeleur?
Abeleur, Abana. Yeah.
Abeleur, Abana. Abadi, Abada.
It sounds really good
Dylan?
when you say it.
Someone's got to drive home, bro.
Dylan?
Hey.
He's
we're-
only had one. No, he's had 2.
responsibility here. Okay. What other kind of controversy have you got for me?
Controversy, as I like to say it, because I'm pretentious. Actually, I was going to bring up your podcasting. 'Cause
Oh,
clearly,
okay.
I'm into it. So, but you're doing it as well now. So,
Well, now,
it's
some
not-
could argue I was doing it before you were. It's just,
you made the plan before me. But
I spent a bit more time in
believe
production.
You did, but I believe I got mine up first. But let's not count hairs. Tell me a little bit about your podcast and what it is all about.
Well, it's about transformation because I'm a little bit obsessed with it. But generally speaking, I think we all are, actually. I think it's part of the human experience, and particularly like the very thing we were just talking about, the whole I've grown up thinking that if I just do this and this and this, then these things will happen in my life. That's actually precisely who the podcast is for. People who have got to that point in life and gone, wait, actually what I have either hasn't turned out how I expected it, or I'm not sure that it is actually what I want. How the heck do I figure out, A, what it is that I really want, or how do I navigate my way to what it is I really want? Because, I kind of believe, and it sounds a bit cliche when you say it, but the thinking that's got you to where you are right now is not the thinking that's going to get you to the next place. We spend the first 30 years of our lives, learning from our parents, learning from our environment, from schools, from university, from our first jobs. We learn how we're meant to operate in the world. And then, when we kind of get there into adulthood.
Whenever that starts.
Oftentimes, in my observation with the people I work with, that's when they figure out that it's not working for them. And so they have to figure out what to do. And transformation's really hard. But if you've gone through the first half of your life trying to follow somebody else's plan, and you want to come up with a plan for yourself, life by design, I call it life by design, or designing what the future is, then you need a way of getting there. And so as I was talking with people and doing that kind of work with individuals, what I began to realize is that the stories that people have gone through and their own experiences actually have a lot to teach us. There's no one set path through transformation. I've got a framework that I work with people to help them figure out, okay, where am I going and how am I going to do this for me? But actually, that framework is just a way of figuring your way through, the map. Yeah. Learning from other people's experiences, understanding what's scary about it, what's hopeful about it, how to say goodbye to the things that you don't need anymore, how to embrace new traditions, how to, choose what you want to deconstruct or how you want to be through your deconstruction if that's the phase that you're going through, or how you want to give up the stuff that's no longer helping you. All of those kind of stories I think are super inspiring and super helpful for people who are trying to figure out how to do life and maybe just do life at the next level. Yeah. That sounds awful, but do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
People who are trying to do life better, trying to live with intention, trying to go to that space.
I think with all people, there's going to be a person that they can relate to wholeheartedly, but everybody else, there's going to be bits of their journey that you can relate to. So what you're doing with your podcast is exactly that. I mean, some people will listen to a certain person, like I know you're talking about an NFL player earlier on, and someone like myself might listen to that and go, yes, I'm hooked into that. I get his entire story. I can relate to that. And then you get somebody else from a completely different avenue, but there'll be one little thing, and I'm like, how did you deal with that particular little piece? And listen to it and get through it. And I think people's honesty, and that's the beauty of podcasts, is that you can also take your time with it. So you can listen to people and you can listen to the honesty that they have and not cherry pick because you're forced to listen to the entire thing.
Right.
Well, saying that you're forced to listen to the entire thing and you can cherry pick if you want to. But if you're actually searching for answers to something, you are going to want to listen to everything, and you will listen more attentively to everything that's going on in a podcast. So what you're doing is grand. It's great.
I'm excited about it.
Is it an edited version? Are you editing yours, or are you just going what I'm doing and just too lazy to edit and just do the whole thing up online?
There's very little editing. So, I come from a radio background, so that was... So
I can tell by your voice. Oh, yeah.
No, I just talk like this all the time, Daryl.
Perfect. What's the weather doing today, Tash?
In Ashburn, we'll be reaching a high of 22 degrees. Watch out for the southerly turning in the late afternoon. I used to get a buzz from reading the weather report. Reading the weather report, yeah. It's true though. You know what? Here's the thing. Do you know what the hardest thing about moving from radio, because I didn't really start talking in front of people to crowds until I had kind of finished doing radio stuff in the studio. And so I used to always, the thing they teach you at, when you're learning in the first, and they're like, just imagine a person that you're talking to, like we're sitting here, right? I'm doing my show, I'm being super entertaining, and I'm just imagining Daryl who's laughing at all my jokes and having a really great time, loving my little insights in between, thinks my chat's real great, thinks my voice sounds hot, it's all good. And then I had to stand in front of a group of people and talk to them, couple of thousand people for the first time, and I all of a sudden went, whoa, okay, this is a different context, because now I can see if you're laughing at my jokes, and I do not have, in my imagination, I had the power to orchestrate your reaction and your response, which made me more confident as a broadcaster. But then when I got on stage and I was like, oh, you're not responding the way I'm imagining you responding. So now I just tell people, even to this day, for 15 years, I've been telling people when I get up in front, I'm just like, hey, if it sounds like it's meant to be a joke, it probably is. So you should laugh, because it's going to make me feel better, which is going to make you feel better. And that's the science of public speaking.
Boom.
And so then people laugh, and then we go and we move forward. And then I've got permission to wait for applause and laughter if I need to. It's like manipulating the audience 101, but we all have a much better time as a result.
Totally.
I'm setting myself up to be funny.
That's one thing I like about public speaking. I enjoy public speaking quite a bit if I ever get the opportunity, and I do like emceeing and all that. And
Let's be honest, we both love the stage. Love it.
Give us a microphone, we're away.
I know. How have we not done this before?
I know.
We're about to revolutionise late night TV in New Zealand.
We totally are. Imagine it. We're being on competing channels though. You could be on like on TV3 and I'll be on TV2
Why do you
at
have
the
to
same
make
time.
it competition? You just don't want to share the spotlight. You'd rather compete.
It's the patriarchy, okay?
You
Who's
would rather
better?
let your spotlight compete with my spotlight instead of just share a spotlight and like
We can share
exponentially
it.
improve the.
People can record. We'll put it online and so they can watch yours first. They can watch mine first and then watch yours, and it'll be grand. That'll work out just perfectly. No, I was saying, enjoy public speaking and the emceeing and all that sort of stuff. I love it because you get up there and your initial job is to just get through the night, tell people where the toilets are, maybe give some information about what's going on in the event, and you're done. And if you're good at it, you can make people laugh along the way. And it just happens. They're not really expecting it. You're just doing your job. If you're a comedian and you're getting up on stage, because I've tried stand-up comedy, you get up there and I was petrified. I wasn't petrified because I was in front of the audience, because I don't mind that. I love the eyes. Look at me. But there was a moment where I thought, shit, they expect me to be funny.
Right.
You know? I can get up in front of an audience and talk about anything else, and maybe it's because I'm also more relaxed and I'm maybe naturally more funny when I'm not expected to be funny. And it just works, and you just have a good time, and you're rolling, and you're having a good old time. But when they expect it, because sometime, and the few times that I've done it, the comedian audiences, the comic audiences, they are sitting there and they're like, make me laugh.
How do you deal with perfection?
Make me laugh. How do I deal with perfection? Because
perfectionism is the thing that has me. So my podcast, I've worked on it in development for 18 months.
Yes.
The narrative arcs, the potential guest list, where it's going to go season by season, breaking it down, right? And I have been working on my Type 5 to do stand-up comedy, the roll out, do the first 5 minutes. I've been working on that in the background slowly for about 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, because perfectionism. Because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go out, and this is my other thing is like, there are a whole bunch of things in the world. Like I said, I've got a lot of passions. A whole bunch of things in the world I only want to do once. Yep. Many things I'd like to do over and over again, but a few things that I'm just like, I just want to do that once. So I want to go out once and do a Type 5 and get really good at that Type 5 and do it several times, and then I'm like, cool, and then I'll be done. You're done. When I feel like I've delivered it as well as I can do it, and then cool. Same with music. I love songwriting. I've written dozens.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I've written dozens of songs. I've never performed any of them. Well, no, that's not true. I have performed them.
What do you play?
I play guitar and I sing.
Fair enough. As you work.
I also play the flute and the trombone occasionally, but let's not talk about that.
I can see a trombone wrapped around you. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. I'm very good at tambourine.
Who isn't?
No, many people are not good at tambourine.
Ching, ching. Yeah. I did not know that,
joking.
really.
I'm actually joking. I'm only moderately okay at tambourine. So, see, I like to be very honest. Authenticity is one of my values, so I have to just be like, I can't tell you. I can't let that sit there. I have to correct it and make it true. Moderately average tambourine player.
You could have let tambourine sit there, though.
I'm very good at writing country music songs, so.
Really? Do you write from your heart? That's what country music's all about.
My heart is black and soulless.
Black and cold.
It's just been shattered into a
female
million
Johnny
pieces.
Cash right there.
It's tied together with string and old postage stamps. Yeah.
How do I deal with perfection? Day by day.
I should have finished that sentence more accurately to say, how do you deal with a drive towards perfectionism?
How do I deal with a drive towards perfectionism?
Or do you just not have it?
You know what? I think...
Because you're an artist. You're a performer.
Yep, I think I realize dealing with imperfection. I think imperfection sometimes... How do I put this without sounding cheesy? How could I just sound cheesy? I think to reach perfection, I think you've just got to let the mistakes happen along the way. I don't. As I've gotten older, I realize that there is no such thing as perfection, and perfection is a state of mind at the end of a result of something. Mm-hmm. So
it was as good as it could be, and therefore perfect.
It was as good as it could be, but without accepting failure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, imperfection and failure isn't necessarily the same thing, right?
True. Yeah. It's not necessarily the same thing.
See, that's why I think I found my journey into the podcasting piece when it finally got down to, and I'm a nerd, so I had to get a really great microphone. This is a lovely microphone, by the way.
It's pretty cool,
but I had to, get a great microphone that I was really happy with the sound on. I wanted kind of a vintage warm sound and all that kind of stuff. And then when it came to actually recording the intros, that was where I got stuck because it was the set piece and I could do it over and over and again. when I was doing live radio, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
cruising
you're off.
because it's live and it's all about the mark of perfection. And that was how good am I at dealing with this in the moment that I've got, in the split second that I have to make a decision about where I'm going to direct this call or how I'm going to manage this little bump, especially when you're doing talkback radio, which has kind of been my bread and butter for a long time. And so I find it much easier to do live. It's when I've got the opportunity to craft something and to make something that's static, that's like, okay, I'm going to make this and it's going to be it. So I've got this one song that I think is beautiful, that two songs actually, but there's one in particular that I just really want to record because I really want to be like, I wrote this and it was about a time in my life that was brutal, but what it says and what it reminds me of is worthwhile keeping, and I just want to kind of capture it. But freaking getting to the studio to do it is like...
But I think it's knowing what your restrictions are. One of the coolest things I've found being a creative and working with some of my friends on projects is that, right, we have these grand ideas and we're all Michael Bay fans. Let's blow shit up. But clearly this is not going to happen.
Are we though? Are we really all Michael Bay
We
fans?
were. Not you, but we were.
I love a bit of Transformers, to be honest.
I love a bit of that. I love a bit of The
It's a
Rock.
great plane movie.
It is a great... Anyway, it is a good film. And it's in its own way. Anyway, as I was saying, you get together and you have all these grand ideas and these the ways that you want to tell a story and show a story. And you realize that, right, what are the restrictions? And you realize the restrictions are you're going to go from Michael Bay to, I don't know, something much, much, much smaller. Nicky Caro, for example. So it's going to be, you've got no budget. So you've got to work within those parameters. And I think trying to reach perfection, for me, as I've gotten older, I've realized that it's knowing what your weaknesses are. Know what your weaknesses are, know what your strengths are, more importantly, but also knowing what those weaknesses are. And then you can get to a version of what it is that you thought it is that you want, and that'll get you into the mind. And that'll get you into the emotional state of, you know what, I've reached the perfection. I've reached the best point that it could be. I had an idea.
Yeah.
I got it to this point. It's the best version of that it can be, and that to me is perfection. It's not someone else's version of perfection. I have this idea in the beginning. I think this is what other people want to see, and that's perfection. If I don't reach that, and you think you're going to reach that, then you're going to constantly feel like you failed.
Yeah.
But if you realize your restrictions and you realize your imperfections, you get there, and you've reached that version of perfection, and that's all you should be really focused on.
Yeah.
And you should be happy when you get there.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that. That's helpful for me. I read an interview with Madeline Sami just recently, and she basically said, you know, she didn't fit into other people's idea of what the work was. You know, she didn't fit into other people's scripts, and so that was when she started kind of working on her own stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's helpful to me. You know, and I think reminding myself to live within the design constraints, to understand that those help me make good art. They help me make good shit. You know.
Yeah. I think I started reading that book.
Cheers.
Saint-Germain. I started reading that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I decided to put emphasis on that word. It was so good. You okay? But
sorry, that was just funny, the way that you delivered that.
Not giving a...
I tried to give my mother the cliff notes of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
without telling her the title of the book?
Oh, no, I did. I just tried to get her to practice saying, I don't give a... Fuck. Yeah, I don't give a...
Fuck. You can say it. You say it. You're like, I don't give it, and then I'm finishing it for you. That's
well, in
fine,
that particular instance, because I was putting words into my mother's mouth, and she'd be horrified.
Gotcha. She would be horrified.
Yeah. But no, I don't give a fuck. There's lots of things I don't give a fuck about.
Yeah. The biggest thing I don't give a fuck about anymore is what someone else thinks about anything. Like, I don't care. About me, I should say. About me.
Right, okay.
About anything
Well, there are some people that I've chosen, but one of the some people I've chosen that I care what they think. But apart from that, no, I don't.
You care about the closest to you and the friends that you surround yourself with. They're the ones that you care about their opinion, and you learn from them. You don't necessarily have to take it. And if they criticize you on something, the not giving a fuck is being able to go, accepting it and realizing that they were just critiquing you and they're trying to improve you.
Well,
so not giving a fuck is not being emotionally invested and angry at that reaction.
Yeah, well, it's living in yourself and not living in other people's view or opinion of you, right? Which is kind of like, and I think it would be fair enough to say, without being too stereotyped, it would be fair enough to say that I think that is something that is particularly challenging for women in a different way than it's challenging for men. The reason why I say that is because there's some brain science stuff that happens in adolescent development, just in terms of the way that traditional gender normative males find their sense of identity through comparison, which is kind of we're basically all the same.
Yep.
Whereas a gender normative female, is very much in a comparison and reflection. So I'm going to project one image of myself to the world and determine how I feel about myself based on how the world responds to me. And I think women end up getting trapped in that cycle for a very long period of time.
Yeah. I think men get into that cycle later on. I think...
yeah, and that's when Ferraris happen.
That's when Ferraris happen, and Lamborghinis, and Maseratis.
And 25-year-olds.
And 25-year-olds. No, but when you get... I think as dudes get older, we're boys. We are boys. We are literally 12 years old until we get to the age of 30. Some of us 40. And, we're big kids. We are so simple in context. We're focused on one thing, and I'm not necessarily talking about one thing being sex or anything like that. I'm just talking about one thing at a time. We're focused.
I didn't feel like that qualification was necessary.
For some people out there, I think it is. So we're focused. We're focused. And it's like we get distracted, but we come back and all that sort of stuff. And then eventually we start questioning. We start thinking about, especially these days, we start thinking about what it is that society wants from us and what it is that we should have been providing, so on and so forth. I think men in general, especially as young adults, right through till death, we need to provide. Well, there are basic things that we need to do. One of them is we need to provide for someone or something. It's
pretty good. I was wondering how long it would take us to get here.
Oh, did you? Yeah. We need to provide. We need to be able to support, and we also like that back in return. And I think that has been stripped away from us to a certain degree these days because of independence. And I'm not saying independence is bad. I just think that's in some ways what people think independence has been skewed. So a lot of people think independence is, I can do things alone. I don't need you. I can do whatever it is, blah, 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 blah. But what people are forgetting that I believe that true independence comes from the ability to be vulnerable and the ability to be confident within yourself, to turn to other people, to seek advice, to seek affirmation. It's okay to seek affirmation, to...
Heck yeah, it is.
Heck yeah. I'm cool, eh? Am I cool? I'm all right?
Later, you should check my Instagram story before I turned up for this recording.
Oh, I think I will. But for dudes, that now is being stripped away. So whereas we used to be adults from the age of 21 onwards in the old days.
Well, in the even older days, from the time you were 14.
From the time when I was...
Do you know that in the first time period that adolescence was actually kind of acknowledged or recorded as a thing, right? It was 18 months.
18 months.
14 to 16. By 16, you were an adult.
I wasn't that sexually confused at 18 months. That's weird.
I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
In the mid 1800s, adolescence.
Is that right?
Yeah. By the time you were 16, you were out in the world.
Also in the mid 1800s, blue was associated with girls and pink was associated with boys. True story. Thank you, QI. One of my favorite shows. Anyway, back to what I was saying.
Always back to you.
Always back to me. But I'm wrapping up. So we've had a lot of those things that I'm talking about, being able to support and provide and all that sort of thing, stripped away socially from us. And now men are little boys, 12 years old, until we're 30 or 40 or anything along those lines. And we're not growing up. But the thing is also, biologically, we don't need to grow up. That's the thing. We can be Peter Pan for as long as we want. Women, not so much.
Yeah.
And, so, yes, the world just needs to really just stop and have conversations and try and work out what it is that we can do to make everybody happy.
So I think the conversation is valuable, and everything that you said, there's only one thing that I would challenge, which is that you said that independence has taken some things away from you. But don't you think that it's been a mutual giving up? Like, don't you think it's like that kind of the softening of the definition of what is manhood or what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah.
In that world of independence, and we're talking about women basically, right? We're talking about saying, okay, the first wave feminism, I am definitely a second wave feminist, right? Which I think is a much healthier version. Disclaimer.
Totally
I
agree.
struggled. Here's the thing. I did not actually feel comfortable identifying as a feminist until about 2015.
Yeah.
And only as a second wave feminist, because there are some complications with first wave feminism. Mainly, did I mention that I'm really straight? That I'm just like, no, I love men. Men can be great.
Yeah.
And I don't think that women have I don't think that we dominate the evolved human status.
Right.
I think there are still a lot of issues with healthy femininity, but I do think there are issues with toxic masculinity.
I would agree.
And somehow, and I think there is that kind of balance where, in some degrees, yes, elements of healthy masculinity have been stripped away by women's desire for greater independence. What I would say a healthy version of that would be interdependence between the sexes. But I think there have been some men who have been pretty happy to let it go. They've been like, all right, have your independence. We're going to party.
Yeah.
We're just going to, because...
And that saddens me.
Yeah.
That saddens
because
me.
there wouldn't be as many men who are sitting there at 30 and 40, still trying to grow up, still trying to figure it out, still trying to be like, okay, wait, what is it that I even really want? Right? If they hadn't been so willing to be like, oh yeah, okay, I won't. Responsibility is something that we take for ourselves, for our own lives.
Yep.
And so at some point in that argument, right, you have to be like, well, if for the changes in society that have happened to have taken something away from men have to have been willing to give something up.
I think the responsibility's been taken away to a degree for men, and it's being replaced with rights and vanity. I think men...
That I think is fair enough.
I think vanity has crept in heavily. I'm not saying we shouldn't look after ourselves and we should look good and all that sort of stuff, and we should all that sort of thing. But vanity, to me, means it's pretty much narcissism.
Yeah,
you love yourself. Yeah, self-indulgence. You love yourself at the expense of the people around you. And I think that has that has grown massively over the last 20 years partly because of feminism, and because
do you want to connect the dots?
I'm trying to connect the dots, trying to connect it all up.
Do you want to have another whiskey? Will that help you connect the dots?
Oh, I've got it all here. No, I'm not trying to connect the dots. Actually, I think if you look back at it, it's when things are stripped away quickly. We look for solutions, and we look for solutions sometimes too hastily and too quickly, and some of those solutions are vain.
Make the pain go away.
Make the pain
me feel
go
better.
away.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I'm not needed anymore. I am looked at in a different way. I am just going to focus on myself, and I am just going to do that for the rest of my life. And there is
I'm
an
going to
element of
dial up
vanity.
the pleasure center.
Yeah, and it's just
Which is understandable.
yeah, and that is, I believe it is understandable. But I think, but
That's because you're a man.
No, but also they get to a certain age, 35 plus, that doesn't fulfill.
Yeah.
They've missed. There is something not wrong. And the same thing I've found with women. At 21, I can say this on good authority because I have many friends who have told me this. At 21, they're all like, I'm hanging out with them and they're all like, oh no, I can open my own door. Oh no, I can pour my own gas. Oh, I can do this. I can pay for my own drink. Da 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 da. 35 single, where are the good men? 35 single, who's opening my door? Literally, I'm not even making this up. The actual words that come from some of these people, the same good friends of mine, and I won't say names, but they know who they are. You know, it's like that. And I just think there needs to be more discussion instead of finger pointing when it comes to all that sort of thing.
Well, healthy conversation is the root of all good things in society.
Yeah.
Right? But I think one of the challenges is that we have not learned how to talk with each other. So I've been writing and talking for years about how I think men and women need to be friends. It is fundamental that women and men need to learn how to be friends, because we need to learn how to have a discourse, how to have a healthy disagreement and still love and appreciate and respect each other at the end of the day. And I think it's through learning how to disagree that you can actually learn how to truly agree. Because if you think about it, right? You and I sit here and we go, oh yeah, we're kind of talking at each other about some things, and I'm going, oh yeah, okay, I can agree with you on that. I have not investigated what it is that you really believe about that. I have not stripped back all the layers to go, okay, I really know and understand what Daryl believes about that one point that I've just said I agree with him on. So what's happened is I'm assuming that your belief is the same as mine and saying I agree with it. And because I say that I agree with you, you assume that my belief is actually the same. And so we live in this false paradigm of, oh, we both agree with each other without ever actually investigating whether or not it's really true. Now, no, go on.
I was just going to say that when we're having these conversations like this, if somebody's talking to me and they're telling me their point of view on something, I think to myself, I really want to hear something that's going to prove me wrong. I want to hear something that's going, oh no, I don't, let me rephrase that. I don't want that. I don't want that. But
you've learned that it's good for you.
I'm open to it. I'm open to listening to something and maybe, okay, how does that fit into what's been said? Okay, we can come to a conclusion here without finger pointing. You're wrong, you're a dick. And then it just divides everybody further and further apart. And I have found that, especially over the last couple of years, both through politics and through social things and social gatherings and all that, there seems to be this want to push further away. It's weird. I don't understand. Why? Everyone's so active about trying to get their point across or having some sort of... I think people are bored. Okay, let me be honest. I think people are bored.
Yeah.
And they are trying to find something that they can get on some sort of bandwagon, no matter how delusional that bandwagon might be to begin with. And they are making a point of something, and everyone else doesn't think the same.
Let me interject with some colour.
Please do.
If I may. So I would offer this.
Yes.
I think to some degree we are bored. I think we're looking for a deeper sense of connection, but we've not learned how to connect through intimacy. We've learned to connect through conflict. And so we come close, we conflict, and then we draw apart. I also think we're looking for something of interest. We're looking to take the conversation further somehow, but we don't necessarily know how. And I think the other component of it, which is maybe related to the we're bored thing, is that we're talking about it, but we're not living it. Like, we're not applying it.
Yeah.
Because if many of the conversations that I hear and that I have in the day-to-day, if people were actually living into that, their lives would be changing. They'd be living differently as a result.
And may I say that not only are we're talking about it, but we're not living it, yet on Instagram, it certainly looks like we're living it. We're editing our lives. Everything is, we present ourselves in a way that we want to present ourselves.
Yeah.
Without,
Well, some people, not me.
Some people.
I'm an oversharer, but then I'm an Enneagram 4, so I'm driven to do that.
You're an Enneagram 4?
Yeah.
What's that? Okay, we'll come back to that. Otherwise we're going to get way off track.
Aside.
That'll get a little thing for later. But, yeah, so it's a very, very confusing time, I think.
Well, we're portraying more of ourselves, like we're creating more of an image of ourselves than ever in the public view, and then trying to live up to and converse in that space. Whilst I think at the same time, many of us are more lonely for the kind of connection that can hold, that can wrestle with, that can rumble with, to steal the words of Brene Brown, who I adore, who can rumble with the vulnerability of disagreeing with somebody but still caring about them enough to stick in it. Because, so there's been this like rush of, and I'm sure you've seen this in a social media driven world, if you think this and this and this, or if you disagree with XYZ point of view, unfriend me now. Right?
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
I saw that recently, actually.
Yeah. So like, if you don't agree with me, get out. And I'm like, no. We need to learn how to rumble. We need to learn how to stick in the hard conversations. I'm going to tell you a story.
Go.
Many, many years ago,
Many
This
years
is a
ago.
funny. It is a funny story, right?
Yeah.
It's because it's like all about like sex and hormones and whatever. Anyway, guy who was friends with it. Like we had a tight group of friends called ourselves the Goonies, and there was a guy who was a member of that group who was a good mate.
I haven't been part of friends who labelled their friend circle in years.
Oh mate,
Sorry,
we made stop animation movies about ourselves and everything. It was awesome.
So go on.
Look, I'm original nerd cool. Okay. I just am.
I would say
Yeah.
you were.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyway, and there was a girl, and we were all just like, she's bad news, man. She's bad news. Like, what are you doing? Don't do this. It was like, no, I'm not going there. But just blah, blah, blah. Anyway. And then we found out that you can tell, you'll probably be able to place this in time and space just purely by how I talk about what happened next. But we found out that actually he had been seeing her and had been getting quite involved. And actually, the thing was, it wasn't like, oh, okay, so you're involved in this relationship that we kind of think is maybe a bad idea because we think maybe she's not she's a bit of a bad egg. Maybe you're going to get a little bit damaged by that, which I think is something as a friend you want to be able to say.
Yes.
You want to be able to say, I'm not sure you're making a good decision here. Anyway, the thing that got under our skin was the fact that he had not told the truth about it. Right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that he kind of like, whatever. Anyway, what's a typical thing that happens in that scenario? So you find out that a mate of yours has been doing something that he told you he absolutely wasn't doing, and then you find out about it. What happens?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You just go, oh, that was silly, and then carry on.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, let's go out for a beer. And so we went out for a beer, and we went out for a beer for 5 hours. Because I said, we're just going to sit here and we're going to have beer until we're ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about why you felt like you had to just not tell us the truth, then we're going to talk about that. And then when we feel like we're actually resolved, then we'll go home. We drank a lot of beer. We had to go have a sleep in the car. But I was like, I am not letting this go.
Yeah.
Because I think one of my special gifts in the world, again, I'm an Enneagram 4, so I'm driven to be unique and special in the world. I really need to feel like I am. But one of my unique and special gifts in the world is that, if you hand me uncomfortable, I will live and sit in that space with you. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Make it I will go gritty and I will go great. Doesn't matter what it is, I'm there. And I think that more people need to learn how to do that because I've seen the gift that can be in people's lives, right? To not walk away from their pain, to not walk away from the shitty stuff. And then to actually not walk away from the truth. Because there are lots of people who will sit with you in sympathy, but they will not tell you to get your head out of your ass and that you are creating your own problem and that you need to stop doing this in order to move on from where you are.
The amount of times that I've been in relationships that have been toxic. And
What is that
I've
about
been in
you?
a lot of toxic relationships.
What is that about you?
That's just a thing. It's like walking and breathing. So I've been in these toxic relationships, and the moment you break up with them, people say, yeah, no, I never really liked her. Thanks a bunch. And I'm not saying that if they told me when you're in something or you're deep into something and somebody really does think that, you might want to reconsider your options, I appreciate that. I like it when people come to me and they say, you might want to, I think this and I think that and I think the other thing. I'm not going to think any less of them. Now, I understand that a lot of people would. They might get offended or they might get defensive about it, but I don't really.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, cool. I'll take that on. I'll listen.
So evolved as a human.
I'm so evolved, mate. I tell you. But the opposite side there is that I am brutal when it comes to honesty. If I think something's like, no, that's shit. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. I'm not very tactful, but I have to. It's like I can't let something bad go through. I've got several friends who. I will quite openly go to them if they're in new relationships and they're pretty evil. It's like, no, that shit. And even if I know and they're lying to me and they're not like your friend and they're not disclosing all the information, but I know, I'll just say, you might want to reconsider what you're doing. You might, blah, blah, blah. You just open and think about it.
So I got involved in a really toxic, nasty, terrible relationship that was brutal.
I bet it was with a guy.
It was, yeah.
Yep.
Should I give you the age and stage? Yeah.
Oh, you're going.
No, it's unnecessary. But it was something that I knew, and I was so trying to have my eyes open about it.
Yeah.
And I was trying to hold it very loosely of like, okay, well, let's just see here, But in the back of my head, I'm a potential addict. I'm addicted to potential.
Yeah.
So see somebody who's
Yes.
a bit messed up, a bit whatever.
You want to heal the wounded paw because
No.
it's-
I'm different
No?
from a rescuer. I'm not a rescuer. No. My desire is that I'm just so like, I see the potential if this person would help themselves.
Yeah.
I hate rescuers. Rescuers drive me crazy. I
Yeah.
want to punch them in the face.
Yeah.
If I see somebody rescuing somebody, I'm like, you need to stop and just back the truck up. Let's talk about your codependency. Why do you need to feel needed by them? Like, we need to.
Yeah.
But so I'd been in this very, very toxic, messy, just it was awful, and it did terrible things to me because it made me not trust my own. It made me not trust my own judgment. Made me not trust my intuition.
Yeah.
Made me super distrustful of everything.
Yeah.
And I have traditionally been somebody, I've trusted my own judgment. I've trusted my ability to assess who a person is. And this was like, oh my goodness, the wool has been pulled over my eyes. Yep. And therefore I'm like, okay, I can't trust myself anymore. I need people now to give me feedback on some of the other decisions that I'm making because I don't trust myself. I need to learn to trust myself again. I need third-party feedback to help me get back on track with that.
Yep. Same thing happened to me probably a couple of years ago. Dills was there, saw it all. Same thing, except for me, it was I got into something that I thought this is cool because it didn't seem like there were any issues. It seemed pretty switched on.
That's when you have to. That's when you should be aware.
That's when I should be aware.
That's the first red flag.
My point is, I wasn't, and I missed all the red flags. And it was.
Were other people picking them up?
Yes.
And were they telling you?
No, this is what
and
I'm
you
talking
need
about
to
before.
call them to account on that.
Yeah, but I didn't know until the end. I didn't really know until the end. Some people were saying things to me, and I was just like, "Nah, you're wrong. This is perfect. This is great." And then that's another lesson that I learned. This was the one. That was the big change that happened to me. It was just like, I am in this. This is perfect. I can see where this is going. I think. This is great. Everything's there, or everything's there, and it's grand. And then I started missing all of those. I didn't realize that I went from someone who was in something solid, and I thought this is going to be great, and we're both equally yoked.
Yeah.
And then it started drifting
Throwback to
into
1996.
Correct. That's awesome. And then I started getting. And then we started. Then I didn't even realize, but I was drifting into something that was. I'm fixing the wounded paw. I'm a healer. Yeah. I didn't see the change. Yeah. And then it happened. And then this particular person took advantage of that fact and started switching it around. And then
you just got messy.
I couldn't fix it. And
Chaos.
because I couldn't fix it, I felt less. And then I got depressed. And then everything went and then dissolved.
Right.
And then everyone comes out and says, "Oh, we didn't really like her." And I'm like, "Thanks, guys. Thanks a bunch."
Yeah. See, in my situation, I knew what the red flags were.
Yeah.
I knew all the messed up stuff, and so that was why I was trying to I'm gonna try and have my eyes open here and whatever, But it still didn't work. But
do you get professional help when things like that happen? Yep.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yep.
I'm a mess. So I'm a little bit. Are you familiar with StrengthsFinder?
Refresh my memory. I think I am.
So it's like your strengths, what you're like your top 5, top 12 kind of operating strengths, the things that you're naturally really good at. So one of mine is input. My top is input.
Sure.
So I'm really good at learning. I'm very good at collecting information, processing that, whatever. So my first port of call is I do a lot of self-analysis in the beautiful world of journaling. But yeah, I have someone I go see on a semi-regular basis. It's kind of like every couple of years or so.
Yep.
Sometimes it's issue specific. Sometimes it's just, hey, give me a health check here and there. And I have friends. I put friends in the role of therapist because that's what friendship is for.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
So, yeah.
But sometimes you've got to be careful with friends and who your friends are because sometimes they're just telling you what you want to hear.
Oh, no, you need to use your judgment.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's part of the trust thing, right? So who do I trust to? There are lots of people I will let them tell me what they think. But the ones that I listen to are the ones that I'm like, you have shown yourself trustworthy. Yep. I mean, I grew up in a world where, everybody always had like 101 plans for my life that all benefited them.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I think you should do? You should totally come and work for my company doing this thing.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha.
Oh, you know what I think you should, blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, yeah, you should totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, and not necessarily always to do with work, but generally speaking, people have a lot of investment in what they want you to do. And it's almost always selfish in some way.
One of the things that I've learned from that situation is that I don't listen to anyone unless I look at their situation and I see how they're handling it. You know what I mean? Oh, you should totally do this, and you should invest in that, and you should do this, and you'll make a million. You'll be a millionaire by 35. Oh yeah, where are you living? In a cardboard box. I don't think I'll take that advice from you.
So I take advice from Oprah.
Good start. Yeah, good. Yep. No.
I'm like, yeah.
No,
like, what?
See, when people dish out Oprah, you want to take the piss, but you can't.
No,
it's like,
because
that's a good idea. I think that's a very good idea. I can't. Yeah. No, indeed, Oprah. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, generally, I agree with that philosophy.
Yep.
I think here's my thing, and where you were going before with the whole like man versus woman versus whatever, I was almost certain you were going to bring up Jordan Peterson, and which.
I've been saving that little gem.
Oh, okay,
really
all right,
have.
okay.
No,
well,
I
that
haven't.
was why I checked my watch, because all right, okay, we're going to Jordan Peterson.
Yep.
But here's my thing, which kind of applies to Jordan Peterson, is that I think people are not discerning, right? Like they don't necessarily pay attention. Me, I'm as guilty of it as anyone. The reason why I say it is because I have to remember to do it myself.
Yep.
To check the sources. Like
Yes.
when I'm reading somebody's opinion and going, yeah, that's super true, that's completely relevant.
Yeah.
What are they informed by? What's their worldview? What's their agenda? What's the barrel that they're trying to push today? So that actually we read and then contribute to the wider conversation from a place of being informed.
Yeah.
So we're actually being helpful as opposed to just spouting whatever.
Yeah. And
Anyway.
there are a lot of spouters out there. Jordan Peterson. Sir Jordan Peterson. What do you think about Jordan Peterson anyway? I kind of, well, as you know, I've read the book.
I do know that you've read the book.
I have listened to him quite a bit on podcasts and online and all that sort of thing. And I don't necessarily agree with everything, but certainly most things.
Nice caveat.
Yeah, nice caveat. But certainly most things. Oh, fuck it. Everything. No, most things.
What was the point? What was the thing that you heard him say or that you read that made you go, yes, this is somebody who has some answers for the world that I'm trying to understand right now? What was the thing that won you over?
The thing that won me over was what we as sexes are biologically triggered to doing. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of that sort of thing has been ignored by a progressive media and a progressive outlook and a progressive society. Ooh. A faux progressive, I would say sometimes.
Faux progressive?
Faux progressive. I think that...
Okay.
I'm not discounting...
Faux as in F-A-U-X as opposed to
X,
F-O. Faux show.
Faux show. No, F-O.
Okay.
The X one.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think a lot of people like to label themselves that. And when he talks about ideology and when he talks about the way people are so obsessed with the way people think, they don't really consider what the other side are thinking. You know, there's a right and there's a wrong and there's nothing in the middle. But for him, he broke down the fact that we need to have this discourse. We need to talk about things, you know. And when it came, and he has opinions about the sexes as well, that, you know, he believes that men have certain traits, women have certain traits, and they almost get yin and yang, and they need to work together. And, you know,
he's a complementarian.
He's a complementarian, if you want to put it that way. Fine. No, but it's true.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
that's what he is. He's a
That's
complementarian.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think, no, I agree with that.
Which
and
is, you know, the idea that men and women have
Yes.
different and unique roles, but that they're designed to intertwine together.
And I think that's important. And I believe that men and women. I believe that even within men's society and within females, you get different personality traits and all that. You can divide it right up. But the main one was the way that he broke it down and the way that he talked about it. I was like, yeah, I get that. I understand that. And I've always thought that there was just a little bit too much push away to everyone needs to be one identity. Everyone needs to think one way. We can all think different ways, and we can all have conversations with each other to solve solutions from different angles.
So the idea that there's a common personality framework,
Correct.
and that we have like 1,000 different, 1 million different, 5 trillion different expressions of that singular personality framework, whereas Peterson is kind of saying there are 2 core frameworks. and you are one or the other, and then those things kind of work together and blah, blah, blah.
Coming from strictly a gender point of view, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you can break it down even further into the different personality traits and stuff.
Well, yeah. There's that.
Yeah.
I mean, layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah. So it was, when I listen to him talk and he breaks it down and he comes from a scientific point of view and a biological point of view, I get that. And I liked hearing that, and I enjoyed that, because there was a time there where it just felt like dudes were just being beaten up socially. You know, we were getting accused of thinking this way, the patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that it's not there. There's absolutely bad. I'm not softening what I'm saying, because it's obvious that there are bad, you know, but there's also bad from the other side, and without saying like Donald Trump. But I believe from a man's point of view, I am bitterly disappointed with the way that men behave and the way that men act.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a reason for it. And I covered some of that earlier on. They're being stripped away a little bit, mainly mentally, not necessarily actual, but we feel like some of us are being stripped away of the responsibility that we needed in life. And if we can get some of that back, or believe that it's okay to be a man without believing that all masculinity is toxic, because that is a narrative which is being thrown around in some circles.
Yeah.
You know, it's just creating a balance and understanding the value of everybody in every different situation.
So question.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, it's Jeopardy. $400 on the board.
Go. Question.
I guess, so here's my question. I think there are two components to what you're saying. There's what you're saying, which I think there is some truth in that, right? Men are undergoing a social redefinition of their role and of masculinity that hasn't necessarily been by their choosing. But don't you think that it's also true that the society we live in has a systemic gender bias towards masculine leadership and definition? So the world that we live in has been primarily designed by men because of some of what Peterson is describing.
Yep.
And not necessarily all of that is true. See, I think you can take the biology and the science and say, yeah, okay, there are these distinctives.
Yeah.
But the product of those distinctives over time and over centuries is not necessarily, hasn't necessarily come through uncorrupted by power, by greed, by the ability to manage, maintain, and ascertain power over other people. And I do think that sexuality is a huge part of that, you know, and that's, I think, where that's where I think on a very day-to-day minor level, there is some reality to, I don't think that the world we currently live in is an example of Peterson's ideology. If you were to take the utopian view of Peterson's ideology, the world that we live in is not a reflection of that. And where I think Peterson falls short is that he's an observational psychologist.
Yes.
And so there's not a solution within his work. And I think that's where he becomes controversial, is because he's kind of saying, well, this is kind of how it is and how it has been, and not necessarily providing a great pathway forward for people. And I think that's really what we're looking for, is society at large needs a way of navigating through the Trumps of the world, the Kavanaugh situations, the how do we figure out what a world looks like where men and women can be, because I think even in his view of complementarianism, that requires a different social structure than what we currently have, because the social structure is currently systematically, endemically biased to the man.
I think that you need people like Peterson and people who think along his frame of mind to remind you of what it has been, and to remind you of the way that we've been thinking.
Yeah, historians are important.
Yeah, and from a biological point of view and historical point of view, I think that we need to sometimes look at the framework that we have created over the last 1,000+ years. And if you disregard that entirely over the space of 30 years, or no, not 60, 50, 60 years, if you disregard that entirely, you throw away 200,000 years of evolution in a space of 60 years, there's going to be pushback and there's going to be damage and there's going to be
fallout
massively. So do I think there is bias? Yes. Do I think there's a certain amount of justified bias? Yes. Do I think that we need to look at the unjustified bias? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to look at that, and we need to fix that, and we need to try and work out that is the part that needs to be chomped on.
So are we just in the pendulum swing?
In what way?
Well, I mean, you can look at society over years, over centuries, as historical self-correction through pendulum swing. So we kind of go through periods of, oh yeah, this is not so bad, and then we kind of go over this way again, and then we come back in the middle, and oh yeah, wait, we've got to go back over this way because we went too far, and we're trying to find the middle through these constant pendulum swings. And is that the period of time that we're in now? The idea that complementarianism would not be so bad, the idea that men and women are both equal but different, and we can exist in a way that is, you know, supporting and mutually beneficial if we correct the structure that we live in right now.
What are you asking? If we should fix the structure?
No, I'm saying, are we in a pendulum swing that actually is headed towards fixing the structure, but we're just through the uncomfortable pendulum swing towards.
If there was a pendulum
women
swing,
need a
I'm
voice.
saying we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the pendulum swing.
Oh, really?
We're at the bottom. And we need to decide, are we heading toward that way? Are we heading toward that way? Are we heading toward separative destruction?
Right.
Or are we heading toward a positive conclusion, a positive discussed conclusion? I think that's where we are right now. From what I'm seeing and the way that the world is treating itself and the way that people are coming to conclusions and the way things are, I just don't know. I don't know. And yet, there seems to be movements of people who are going, wait on, let's talk. Jordan Peterson, I consider one of those people who are saying, hold on, let's talk about this.
Yeah, I think he's trying to facilitate conversation.
He is.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about. That's the other thing that I like about him too.
Yeah.
It's like
he's misunderstood because most people don't know how to actually listen.
How exactly? And I think we just need to sort of. There's a movement now towards, okay, we think that some of the stuff that the ultra progressives are doing and saying that are trying to influence in Marxism, and there's a bit of a socialist element there, that they're stripping us of the way we're allowed to be thinking. You know what I mean? Let's just pull things back a little bit now, and let's recenter things. And I think people who, like podcasts, for example, having discussions and conversations and actually talk about this stuff rather than pointing fingers or looking for the best story. And yet, while that's happening, we're pushing against a media which is trying to make us point fingers and throw things at each other.
You're going to love America when you go.
Just damn, dude. But it's you know what I mean? It's like, I believe that the world wants to fix itself. If you could look at it from a bell curve point of view, you've got the hard right and the hard left.
Yeah.
That was for you, by the way. Left's over here, right's here. Hard right, hard left.
Nicely done.
And everybody else in the middle is just, look, let's just have a chat. Let's just sort shit out. But unfortunately, the hard right and the hard left have the loudest voices. And they are the ones that are selling the newspapers and, you know, making things confusing for everybody else. So there needs to be more. So what I mean by the pendulum swing is the pendulum's here. We need to decide which way it's going to go.
Okay.
And I think with some of the things that have been going on over the last 2 years, especially in America, America's like clusterfuck at the moment. I mean, socially, it's a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
When you go to America, you would think, this is not the America that I'm seeing on TV, on CNN or Fox. But I think socially there are some big. The Me Too movement was great. I think the Me Too movement was really, really good. It brought out.
Point of order.
You go on.
You used past tense.
I did.
The Me Too movement was great.
I was about to carry on.
Okay, well, you better hurry up.
The Me Too movement was great. Because it brought to light, when it started out, for the first year, it was brilliant because it brought out a, what am I trying to say?
I don't know. But you better hurry up.
Oh, just stop it. The abelier is kicking in. No, it brought out discovery. It brought out discovery in what was going on and what was going on for a lot of women. And it was unknown or it was ignored. And I think the Me Too movement brought that to the table. And it said, you can no longer ignore this. We need to look at this now. We need to fix this. And it did. It started the conversation anyway. I'm not saying it fixed it completely, but it started it, and it kept things going on, and it changed the fabric of society. The danger now and I'm seeing this but it's not helped by the Kavanaugh situation and all this sort of stuff, to be honest. Just when you think that, okay, it's evening it out, something stupid like that happens. But there seems to, the Me Too movement's now getting to a point where, okay, who can we point fingers at next? They are looking for the next target to point fingers at. Men. They're looking for the next one. They're looking for this, they're looking for that. Meanwhile, men are sitting there going, what the fuck have I done? You know, can I be pointed at? What's going on?
And I think some men should be.
But some men should. Absolutely. I'm not saying that it shouldn't.
I could give you a list of names and phone numbers and you could follow them up and be like, hey, let's have a conversation about how you're not helping our cause.
I totally believe that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not. But I think that there is, when they start pointing fingers or one gender is starting to feel like they are being attacked, they're going to put their back up against the wall. Mm-hmm. When that back gets put up against the wall too much, eventually there's going to be some sort of pushback, and it's going to be stupid. I think the Kavanaugh thing was part of that pushback.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people there who are angry at the Me Too movement and a lot of other things that have been pushed up and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, including Trump, all that sort of stuff, and eventually it's just going to start pushing back. Mm-hmm. And if you push too far back on men in general, because according to Peterson, we are the more aggressive and we are the more, focused and push forward, something's going to give, And I think let's start now having constructive conversations instead of pointing fingers, instead of accusation. Mm-hmm. Let's now, okay, we've talked about it. We know what bad is. There is a grey, and we need to sort that grey out, and we need to go through that grey. There are some people who are saying that rape is the same as wolf whistling, and that shit is wrong in my mind.
Yes. I do not disagree with you on that point. The one thing that I would put into this conversation, though, and I feel like I have permission to say it as a woman, and you probably don't get
That's
to
the hardest thing about these conversations.
Right?
It's like, I can't say it. I'm a white guy.
No, but I mean, you can say all of those things, and I hope you can say them to me, because I'm into the gritty, right? Like, how do we live in a painful situation? Yeah. But I do think one of the if you talk to a therapist or a psychologist or somebody who knows how to walk with people through trauma and how to walk them through the healing process, one of the things that they will talk about is the necessity of people being able to tell their stories. And so if you think about that classic male stereotype, the profile of tell me what's wrong, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and fix it. Men, the stereotype is that men don't necessarily like to dwell in pain. They don't necessarily like to spend time in the emotion. They like to move forward into fixing it. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that may be required to heal the relationship between the male and female gender, one of the things that may be required for longer than just a year, because this is centuries old, for longer than just a year, is the ability for women to speak and have their voices and their stories heard, and for men to sit in that pain and hear it and just be empathetic. And then when it's time to move forward into healing, then it's going to be time. And we have to somehow balance the fact that we do have to start fixing some things right now. Yeah. But we also need to take some time to hear and to listen. And I think that's the crux right now of the tension is, how do we listen? How do we give space and create space for men who do want to listen, who do want to sit in it, who are feeling, heartbroken and compelled by the tragedy of where our society's got to, who want to restore it? I mean, I've got some friends that I really admire who just speak so openly about calling out toxic masculinity when they see it. Yep. They're men, and they're trying to do a better job, and they're trying to call other men to a better way of doing it. At the same time, there are equally on my side of the fence. There are women who are trying to do a good job of saying, how let's talk, let's listen, let's heal, let's bring the conversation together. But I do think that there is, and if you think about what we've been through with the Treaty of Waitangi and what it means to sit and to listen and to really hui around some of these issues, or if we look at race reconciliation in South Africa, if we look at how we've recovered from the genocides in Rwanda, all of these stories tell us that sitting and listening and spending time sitting in people's stories actually does some of the work of healing for us, and then our solutions can be more meaningful because they are mutual solutions as opposed to one group trying to fix the problems of another group.
Totally agree.
Well,
I
that
totally
feels good,
agree.
doesn't it?
I totally agree, and I also believe, just to add one other thing to that, is just to add.
Because a
I'm
man
not-
should always
it's-
have the last
it's
word.
Not no, it's not a contradiction. This is something that's very close to my heart. It is something that's very important to me. The toxic masculinity thing, and the way that men are, and people say that, not the way that men are, but the way that some men are, and the way that we're being painted sometimes, is that we do not express our emotions. We bottle things up. There is a massive suicide rate in this country. One of the highest suicide rates is between 35 and 45 in men. This is something I'm very, very passionate about. Now, they say we need to express ourselves, get the emotions out, talk to people, and that sort of thing. But currently, a lot of men, including sometimes myself, we don't believe that our problems are worth talking about, or we believe that our problems are being shut down because they're not as important as what's being battered around from third-wave feminists and certain people on that side of things. Now, I'm not trying to take away anything from any other side. I'm just saying that this side doesn't believe it can be listened to. And it needs to know that it can be listened to. And the way that certain areas of society act, it's not helping the situation. And we're still feeling not listened to. Yet these are the same people that are telling us that we need to express ourselves and share our emotions and all that sort of thing. And it's like we want to share our feelings and our problems, but we don't feel that we can.
Well, and also, you know, on that same, if we're going to apply the rules across the board, right, the guidelines, the principles, however you want to talk about it, if we're going to apply them across the board, then I think it's entirely fair to say each person needs to learn how to express themselves in fullness. So intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, right?
Yeah.
We can agree on that.
Agree, totally.
And so what that looks like needs to be actually determined by self. It doesn't have to be, because I'm a woman and therefore society tells me I'm better at feelings than you are, I'm going to tell you how you should express your feelings to me so that I can feel like you've satisfied my desire to understand your feelings. Actually, what we need to progress to is a way of me being able to say, as a person, Daryl, as a person, what can I do? What do you need in order to be able to express yourself fully, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually?
Yes.
And how can we do that for each other? Because what we're in at the moment is the either or, right? Which brings us back to the pendulum swing. The either or of these people get to talk now, and now these people get to talk. And that's where we've been, again, the racial reconciliation thing paints a picture here of how to do this successfully. You know, if one person has had a dominant voice, there needs to be a time to then hear the pain of the other party and then to move forward into mutual conversation.
Yes.
And it's hard. So
I know it's hard. It's damn hard.
Here's a question.
Shoot.
Does this stuff, which is big and ideological and philosophical, how does it impact your day-to-day life? Does it impact your dating life? Does it impact your relationships with friends and family and work colleagues?
Sometimes. Dating life. It affects dating life sometimes because I like talking about this sort of stuff.
And,
really? No, really.
And by the second date, people are like, what?
Well, if I let them have a second date.
Because the patriarchy has such high standards.
Such high standards. No, I do, really. No, I do. No. Sorry, we're talking about how does it affect.
Well, because what I'm wondering is, right, because back to what you were saying before, we're very good at talking about shit. About like, let's have this debate, let's have this whatever, and actually we're using it as a way of categorizing and sorting people in terms of people that we'll talk to and engage with and people that we won't. And so what I'm wondering is, how do you actually live that out in the day-to-day?
Yeah.
Would you, clearly...
Sometimes, no. Sometimes I genuinely do think about it. Sometimes it impacts me in a way that I don't even realize until I do realize it. So... I find myself tied up in knots, especially when you're on social media, for example. Most of my friends are progressive and on the left, and some of them are hard left, and some of them aren't so much. So I get this bubble of one side coming down. And to me, it's just like, well, most of this stuff doesn't make sense. I agree with a lot of it. But it's so aggressive in tone, and it's so demeaning to certain people, it's like, this isn't cool. I don't like that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen on the right side as well. If I was in that bubble, probably. So yes, when it comes to things like social media and so on and so forth, then yeah, I do. I read that sort of stuff, and I do for a moment. I get wound up. I get wound up about it purely because I just don't like the way the discourse is going. It's more of that,
Right.
you know. As I said before, it's like I want to have conversation, and I'm okay being proven wrong. You know, that's cool. You know, but it's in the way that we have that conversation. That's the thing that winds me up. I'm sick of seeing this aggression and this demeaning of everyone else around us. We're all right, you're all wrong, and if you're not hard left, you're not hard right, blah, 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 blah. That gets to me, and that makes me sad. And I do genuinely get down about that. And back to the dating life, no, I have political and I have conversations like this sort of thing. And it's not because I'm trying to find out the way they think or the way I think. I am in some ways, but
I feel like that's typically kind of important in dating.
That is typically. No, what I was going to say was, it's in the way that they get their point across. It's like if they get their point across with passion, conviction, but at the same time, they're able to. What's the word? I'm going blank. They're able to listen as well.
Right. So they come to the conversation open-handedly.
Exactly.
Then that's
important.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I just like good old discourse. I like a good old yarn.
Yeah.
You know, and
because that's my question. My question is just, in this world now where it's really easy for us to talk at a big philosophical, ideological level, how are we actually living it out day to day? Like are we just talking about issues
of everyone
and
just
then
doesn't even listen. 99.9% of people don't listen.
I just think most of them don't care. They're just trying
They
to
don't give a shit.
And maybe that's okay, right? Maybe
it's great. More of those. Ignorance is bliss. No, I'm
well,
right.
but that's the tension, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, honestly, I grew up thinking, man, if I could get married and start having kids when I was like 23, that'd be great. I'd like have all my kids by the time I'm 30, and then like I can just concentrate on being an awesome parent, and that'll be making a great contribution to the world, and then I can do some stuff down track, and that'll be fine. You know, and I think, there's lots that's really appealing about a traditional complementarian world where it's like, okay, you know, here's what women biologically are typically quite good at doing.
Yeah.
And okay, let's sit into that. And that would be really comfortable. But that's not how my life has panned out. And so I have to figure out a way of living that somehow is me fully alive and making my best contribution into the world in a way that I still feel is meaningful. And that means I have to live differently. And, you know, it means I can't necessarily, at the age that I'm at, that I don't necessarily need to say, I can't necessarily buy into a narrative where my greatest contribution to society at large is going to be biological.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have to think, okay, well then how else can I contribute to society in a meaningful way? And what does that therefore need to look like? And that's what I mean, I guess, when I say like, how does it impact your dating life? How does it, like, I don't know that I can date somebody who just wants to be with a woman who's going to be like settling down to have kids and whatever else. Because I'm just like, biologically, I don't know if I'm capable of that.
Kia ora. Why did I say that? That's so bad. But what I mean was I understand. What I mean is that I understand what you're saying.
You know, and so
Totally.
I kind of think about now, okay, when I think about the kind of people I want to be in a relationship with, I'm like, okay, I need to be in a relationship with somebody who thinks that this stuff is also important because it's important to me.
And what is the expectation on that? You know, you're talking about before about they expect the kids in the white picket fence and all that sort of thing. It's like that's not necessarily going to happen. And how are they going? Yeah. So it's kind of, you know,
which, by the way, is not necessarily my failure. It might also just be my choice, right?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Kids are exhausting.
Oh, no. I've seen people with them and I'm like, how do you do this, man? They are nipping. You haven't had sleep in fucking months. How are you doing this?
I'm like, hey, wait, maybe there's a third way. What? It's called sleeping in and taking holidays all the time. Yeah.
The relationship thing's interesting. I think I don't believe in any rules. I think that no two couples are the same. And when you go into a relationship and one of those couples believes that all couples should be the same or be of a certain way, then it's just destined for failure. Well, with me anyway, and I'm guessing with you as well.
Oh, highly likely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think life's complicated enough without trying to fit into somebody else's pre kind of written script.
Yes.
So you're actually better off to get your brain and your heart and your soul engaged and design your own and engage with the other person and actually just have real talk conversations about what you really want. But that's where I think some of the stuff, I think the political stuff does make a difference. The way that you view other genders makes a difference, right? In terms of what you can design and what you can figure out. And ultimately, you can talk all the philosophy and ideology that you like, but if you're not actually prepared to put it into practice in your own day-to-day life, then shut up, get off the bus.
Yep. Thanks for coming by. It's been a pleasure.
Look, you're welcome.
People. I just don't like people.
They're so problematic.
Give up on people. Shit. Human beings, why?
No, I love people.
No, I do.
People are amazing.
I agree too. They are my best friends and my worst enemies as well. People.
That was deep, wasn't it? They're my best friends and my worst enemies. People. What are you going to say about
What were
people?
your other options? Like canines?
Canine dogs. I want a piggy. I want a pigs. I want a pig.
Tash, this has been phenomenal. I have really enjoyed this. This has been great. Started
I
off
feel
with
like you say
whiskies.
that to all the guests.
No, not at all. Actually, no, genuinely. Hey, this is like the first time I've been like, no, this has been really fucking like good old chats. That's not to say my other guests haven't been cool too, because they're great. But this has been really, really
But
awesome.
I beat you
This has
all.
been deep.
I beat you all.
It's been mean. We should wrap it up there. It feels like it's been going on for a very long time, although I could talk
It's like
for
ages.
ages.
It's like heaps long, bro.
Where can people get hold of you? What? Put it out there. What's your website? What's your apps?
Sure.
What's your hashtags?
On the interwebs, tashmcgill.com, thetransformationist.org if you would like to listen to the podcast, launching this week, very exciting, and in all manner of social media. If you would like to know more about whiskey, who doesn't?
Who doesn't really?
The Whiskey Girl, NZ, on Instagram. And then everywhere else I'm Tash McGill. I mean, I early on I adopted to the single brand everywhere. So Google Tash McGill, you'll find me everywhere you want.
I agree.
And some places you don't.
I agree. That's a very good idea. Thank you, Tash. This has been awesome. And I would like to have you back regularly. You know,
Hey,
maybe in 6 months or so. Come on back when you're back in the country. Let's sit down and have a chat and see if anything's changed.
Let's do it. We should try and do one of these from like across the Pacific.
We could.
Yeah,
We
24
could.
and 25K one time. That'd be hilarious.
I've actually said that I don't want to do that, but for certain, no, for you, I'm
Awkward.
like, no, we could totally. Oh, do you mean me coming over?
I'm just like, we should record one of these on the flight. Like, that'd be fun.
How
Or
long's
just
the-
in
how long's the
America.
flight? How long's the
It's
flight?
like 12 hours.
We could totally do that. Just take a little Zoom. We'll be sitting there recording away. Fix the world's problems in one flight. How to fix the world's problems from Auckland to LA. No, actually, can we go to San Francisco? From Auckland to San Francisco.
How about Chicago?
Do they do Chicago now?
Yeah, from November.
It's like another 5 hours.
3.
Another 3 hours. It's a lot of talking.
But deep dish pizza.
I'm not. I don't think I've had deep dish pizza. Anyway,
You
I'm
haven't
sure
lived.
it'll be wonderful. I haven't lived until I have deep dish pizza. Deep dish pizza, y'all. Awesome. Thank you, Tash. It's been rad.
Matewa.
Until next time. Hi there.